Chapter 79. Battle in the Streets. You are strong, Jacob mused, his voice a mix of genuine surprise and dark amusement. He tightened his grip on Dimitri's fist, the bones in the larger man's hand audibly creaking under the pressure. A wide, eager smirk spread across his face. I hope you can last long enough for me to enjoy our fight. Then he released Dimitri's fist. Dimitri roared and swung again, faster this time. His blows came in a wild flurry, each punch heavy enough to crush stone, but Jacob dodged them all with effortless precision. He moved like smoke, sidestepping, weaving, and parrying without losing his grin. Jacob dodged a punch and slammed his elbow into Dimitri's chest. The crack of breaking ribs was unmistakable, and the larger man was sent crashing into the asphalt. Dimitri groaned, spitting blood as he struggled to his feet. But before he could even set his stance, Jacob blurred forward using his super speed and drove a fist deep into his chest. The force lifted Dimitri off his feet, sending him flying backward as if yanked by a wire. He crashed into a pile of scorched rebar and concrete with a sickening crunch of metal and bone. Jacob smirked. Is that all you've got? From the rubble, a guttural, inhuman sound emerged. Dimitri rose, his body beginning to grotesquely reconfigure. Muscles bulged, bones snapped and shifted, and black fur erupted across his skin. His chest expanded, his shoulders broadening as his head distorted into the shape of a massive bull. He grew to a towering 2.5 meters, his legs transforming into powerful, cloven-hoofed limbs, a thick tail lashing behind him. Two curved horns burst from his skull, and his eyes glowed red. Jacob raised a brow, clearly intrigued. Finally decided to shift. I've been wanting to see your minotaur form since I read Alina's memories. Dimitri snorted, hot vapor puffing from its nostrils into the cool night air. Then he charged. The very ground trembled, asphalt cracking under its hoofs. Jacob braced, crossing his arms in front of him. This time, the impact was different. A grunt was forced from his lips as the minotaur's fist connected, his boots skidding backward several inches through the rubble. Jacob smirked. Now we're talking. With a powerful heave, he shoved the minotaur back. Seizing the opening, he launched into the air, spun to build momentum, and delivered a devastating kick to the center of the beast's chest. The crack of impact echoed through the ruins. Dimitri stumbled back, bellowing in pain, before toppling onto his back. As Dimitri roared in fury and struggled to its hoofs, Jacob's eyes fell on the tattered remains of his suit jacket. He strolled over, plucked a black bank card from the inside pocket, and put it into his pocket dimension. Wouldn't want this getting lost. There's a lot of money on it, according to Alina's memories. The casual theft was the final insult. Dimitri let out a roar that shredded the air and charged again, consumed by a rage that overrode all sense of self-preservation. Jacob smirked and met his charge. The real fight began. It was a brutal, direct contest of power. Their blows collided with thunderous cracks, shockwaves rippling outward as they traded hit for hit. Jacob dodged a swing of the minotaur's tree trunk-like arm and drove his own fist into the minotaur's ribs, feeling another satisfying crack. Dimitri retaliated by dropping to all fours, using the tremendous strength in his legs to launch himself forward, aiming to gore Jacob on his horns. Jacob caught both horns in his hands, his boots sliding backward from the force before he dug in and halted the charge. He smirked and drove a powerful knee directly into the minotaur's snout. Dimitri roared in pain and swung a huge fist wildly. Jacob simply let go of the horns, his smirk never fading. The fight continued, but Jacob was undeniably stronger and faster, a predator playing with his food. He let Dimitri wear himself out, blocking and countering with precise, bone-shattering strikes. The minotaur's blind rage was his undoing. The turning point came when Jacob sidestepped a blind charge and hammered a fist into the side of the minotaur's head. The force was immense, and with a sound like splitting timber, one of Dimitri's horns broke off at the root. Dimitri screamed, a horrifying mix of human agony and bestial bellows. He staggered away, clutching his head. Warm blood began to mat the fur around his temple. The blinding rage cleared from his red eyes, replaced by dawning, primal fear. He looked at the smirking clown and realized the horrifying truth. The clown was toying with him. If he stayed, he would die. Spinning on his hooves, Dimitri turned and fled toward the glowing lights of the city. Jacob picked up the severed horn, hefting its weight before tossing it aside. He smiled at the fleeing minotaur's back. Hey, come back here. I thought we were having fun. He began to follow, not with a sprint, but with a predator's leisurely stalk. He allowed Dmitri to gain a little distance, to let the glorious, fleeting hope of escape take root. Then, in a blur of motion, Jacob would reappear to deliver a bone-jarring blow that sent the Minotaur crashing into a dumpster or through a chain-link fence. Dmitri would stagger to his feet, disoriented and bleeding, and run again. And Jacob would follow. They repeated this deadly game: hit, fall, run, hit again, until they burst from a ruined alleyway onto a crowded city street. Cars screeched to a halt. Pedestrians froze, staring in disbelief at the bleeding, horned monstrosity that had stumbled into the middle of the street. Then all eyes turned to the clown-faced man who emerged from the same alley, smirking, and walking calmly toward the beast. For a moment, a stunned silence hung in the air, broken only by the constant hum of traffic and distant casino music. Then, the whispers started. Phones were raised. A man pointed a shaking finger at Jacob and said, "It's the Joker. They must be filming a Batman movie." Another scoffed, "Really? I don't see any cameras." Three brave, or foolish, girls skipped over to Jacob. "Can we take a picture with you?" one asked. Jacob flashed them a smile. "Sure." He threw his arms around two of them, posing as their friend snapped the photos before they scurried away, giggling hysterically. Jacob's eyes scanned the crowd of tourists, gamblers, and revelers. An idea bloomed in his mind. "Since we are in Vegas," he thought, his smirk widening, "let's give these people a show." With a ground-shaking roar, Dmitri grabbed a parked sedan and hurled it at Jacob. Jacob didn't even flinch. He inhaled deeply and unleashed a stream of searing dragon fire. The car exploded midair, a fireball lighting up the street as molten metal rained down like fiery confetti. The crowd, now thinking this was the greatest street performance they'd ever seen, erupted in cheers. A woman nudged her boyfriend. "The CGI is amazing." "Are you stupid?" he retorted. "That's not CGI, that's a real car. Do you even know what CGI means?" "My car," a man wailed from the sidewalk. Enraged, Dmitri picked up another SUV and sent it flying toward Jacob. This time, Jacob simply kicked the vehicle, sending it rocketing back toward the Minotaur faster than it had come. It slammed into his chest, flattening him against the wall of a casino. Dmitri freed himself with a bellow of pure fury, tearing a lamppost from the concrete and swinging it like a colossal club. Jacob caught the blow with one arm, sparks flying where the metal met his scaled forearm. He twisted, wrenched the post from Dmitri's grasp, and used it like a bat to smash Dmitri across the jaw. As the Minotaur staggered, dazed, Jacob seized his remaining horn and delivered 3 brutal punches to his head before releasing him and delivering a final kick that sent him crashing hard into a building. A few drunk tourists stumbled out of a nearby bar just in time to see the monster embedded in the crumbling wall. "Yo, bro," one of them laughed, stumbling forward with his phone. "That costume is sick. Is this, like, a movie shoot or something?" The man walked right up to Dmitri's motionless body and raised his phone for a selfie. The Minotaur stirred, blood dripping from his mouth, and his glowing red eyes snapped open. Jacob saw it and cursed. "Damn it. It's too late to save him now." The drunk man barely had time to scream. Dmitri's hand shot out, grabbing him by the torso, and with a sickening tear, he ripped the man clean in half. The 2 pieces of the corpse hit the ground with a wet thud, blood splattering across the sidewalk. Jacob sighed. That guy was unfortunate. The drunk man's friends, and the entire watching crowd, froze. The illusion shattered. This was no movie shoot. This was a nightmare. A single, piercing scream cut through the air, and then the street erupted into chaos. People scattered in all directions, trampling over one another in a blind panic. Cars swerved and crashed into each other. Some drivers abandoned their vehicles entirely and fled on foot. Jacob's grin faded and thought, "Well, that escalated quickly. These people are going to need some serious therapy after tonight." In the distance, sirens wailed. Police cruisers screeched to a halt, blocking both ends of the street. Officers leapt out, guns drawn, shouting for everyone to get down. They took one look at the monstrous Minotaur and opened fire on him and Jacob. Bullets tore through the air. They ricocheted off Jacob harmlessly, flattening against the scales hidden beneath his clothes. But Dmitri wasn't so lucky. Rounds punched through his thick hide, drawing fresh streams of blood and fueling his rage. Enraged and in pain, the Minotaur turned toward the nearest group of officers. He charged, his one remaining horn lowered like a spear, ready to gore and trample them. But Jacob was suddenly there, an immovable wall between the raging beast and the terrified cops. All right, he said, his voice dropping to a cold, deadly calm. I can't let you kill anyone else. Time to end this. He inhaled, and the air around him shimmered with intense heat. Then his mouth opened, and he unleashed his dragon's breath. The cone of hot flame engulfed Dimitri completely. The Minotaur's agonized roar was cut short as the inferno consumed him. Flesh and fur vaporized, bones blackened and crumbled to ash. In moments, nothing was left but a sizzling, molten scar on the asphalt where the beast had stood. Jacob exhaled softly, a wisp of steam curling from his lips as he turned to face the police officers behind him. The officers panicked. One of them, a woman with wide, terrified eyes, raised her service weapon and fired. The bullet ricocheted off Jacob's chest with a sharp ping. He smiled, a cold, unsettling expression. That's rude. I just saved your lives. He stepped closer. He gently touched her chin with a clawed finger, forcing her to meet his glowing golden eyes. By the way, he murmured, do you want to know how I got these scars on my face? The gun clattered to the pavement as the officer began to tremble uncontrollably. Just then, Jacob heard Allison's voice in his head. Stop molesting the poor woman and let's go. It's time we left Vegas, especially after the shit you just pulled, you idiot. Jacob let go of the woman and replied telepathically. What did I do this time? You could have killed that bull guy in front of the auction building. Allison shot back. That way, that man who got torn apart would still be alive, and this chaos wouldn't have happened. Jacob shrugged. That's not my fault. Who told that guy to try and take a selfie with a minotaur? I mean, couldn't he see it was a real monster? Jacob used his superspeed and vanished from the street. The cops spun around, searching in vain for the clown who had simply disappeared. Jacob reappeared in a shadowy alley where Allison was waiting. He kissed her, and said, Where's Lydia and Cogman? They're still near the auction ruins with the people we saved from the auction. She replied. Let's go get them and leave. Jacob said. They used their superspeed, becoming blurs as they raced back to the outskirts of the city where Lydia, Cogman, and the freed captives were gathered. When they arrived, Jacob looked over the huddled group of freed captives. After a brief internal struggle, he sighed dramatically. You should all know that what I'm about to do is really going to hurt me. Everyone except Allison, Lydia, and Cogman visibly panicked, shrinking back. Lydia raised a brow. What are you going to do? I'm going to give them some money. Jacob said. He reached into his pocket dimension and withdrew stacks of cash totaling $30 million. George, he said, addressing the alpha werewolf. You take $2 million for yourself and your family. Except for the 2 FBI agents, give the rest $1 million each. He handed the massive sum to George, who began distributing it. After the money was handed out, Jacob clapped his hands together. All right, time for us to go. You guys should leave this city as soon as possible and lay low. The people behind the auction house are seriously scary, with connections everywhere. Make sure you don't get caught again. He then turned to the 2 FBI agents. One of you, give me your phone. I'll write down 3 addresses for auctions like this one here in the States. Take them to your superiors and tell them what you saw. But, they'll probably tell you to forget everything that happened tonight. The female agent handed her phone to Jacob without hesitation. They probably will, she said. But if they allow us to go after those auctions, I'll do everything in my power to destroy them. Jacob finished typing and handed the phone back. Don't go after those people if you want to live long. As humans, you stand no chance against them. He showed her his hand, where fine, reptilian scales glinted in the light. And don't bother trying to get my fingerprints to find out who I am. I have no prints. The female agent offered a small, respectful smile. I wouldn't do that even if you left prints. She deliberately wiped the phone on her sleeve. See, I have no intention of knowing who you are. You're a good person, and in the scary world we just learned about tonight, we need people like you. She pocketed the phone and added. And as for us being weak humans, George is going to fix that. Allison looked at the alpha werewolf. Are you going to give them the bite? Did you tell them the risks? I did, George said firmly. They still insisted. I will teach them how to control themselves. Then good luck, Jacob said. Now, it's definitely time for us to leave. With that, Jacob, Lydia, Allison, and Cogman departed. They slipped into a dark alley, and after Cogman confirmed no cameras were present, their nanomasks shimmered, shifting their appearances to the random faces they had used upon arriving in Vegas. They melted into the crowds on the street, returned to their hotel, checked out, and began the long drive back to Beacon Hills. In the car, Allison turned to Jacob. By the way, what was the woman you fought on the 6th floor? Jacob kept his eyes on the road. She was a Gorgon. Lydia said. A Gorgon. Was she dangerous? Nope, not at all. Jacob said a little too quickly. I dealt with her with ease. Allison narrowed her eyes, her gaze piercing. Why do I feel like you're lying? I'm not lying. She was weak. He said, clearing his throat. Anyways, this trip was fun and now we're so rich. I still have 130 million in cash in my pocket dimension, and we'll see how much is on the bank cards after Cogman makes all the money ours. Allison asked. Do you think what you did tonight will be on the news tomorrow? I mean, you fighting a minotaur in front of all those people. Probably not. Jacob mused. The higher UPS in the government wouldn't let that happen. They wouldn't want the supernatural world exposed and cause a panic among normal humans. Anyway, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Chapter 80. Back Home Point. 1. After driving almost all night, Jacob, Allison, Lydia, and Cogman finally arrived back in Beacon Hills. The digital clock on the dashboard read 4:07 a.m. as the car rolled to a stop in front of the mansion. The night was still and quiet, save for the faint chirping of crickets. Malia, who had heard the car, was already waiting for them near the entrance. When Jacob stepped out, she ran toward him, circling him happily before rubbing her head against his leg. Jacob smiled, crouching down to pat her head. Hey, Malia, missed us. She nodded and gave a small bark in reply. The group headed inside. The mansion felt comforting after everything that had happened in Vegas. Jacob handed all the bank cards to Cogman before heading upstairs with the girls. Allison and Lydia went straight to their rooms to shower, while Jacob retreated to his. Malia followed him, trotting close behind, and jumped onto his bed as if claiming it for herself. He took a shower, and by the time he came out, Malia was already curled up and fast asleep. He lay down beside her, gently stroking her fur. A few minutes later, Allison and Lydia, freshly showered, came into his room. Seeing Malia asleep and Jacob already half asleep, they exchanged a smile and quietly slipped under the covers. The four of them slept soundly until morning. Jacob didn't wake up until almost 11 a.m. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, warming the bed. He blinked the sleep from his eyes and noticed that Malia was gone, but Allison and Lydia were still sleeping, hugging him from both sides. He carefully freed himself from their arms, moving slowly so as not to wake them, and headed downstairs. Malia was on the couch in the living room, watching an animal documentary on TV. Jacob sat beside her. Hey, he said softly. Did you go to the woods while we were gone? She shook her head. Jacob smiled. Good girl. Malia snorted and ignored him, turning her attention back to the TV. He reached into his pocket dimension and pulled out several snacks he'd picked up for her in Vegas. Malia perked up immediately, her tail wagging. He grabbed some chips for himself, and the two ate together in comfortable silence. System, sign in. Jacob thought. Daily sign-in successful. Rewards obtained. Death's bath water 20 liters, Akame ga kill. Paddington's marmalade 30 jars Paddington. A pair of socks. Jacob read the rewards and sighed. System, I like girls, not their bath water or dirty underwear. Stop giving me these perverted rewards. I should get rid of that water again. He took a jar of marmalade and some crackers from his pocket dimension and tasted it. Not bad, he thought. I should put a few jars in the kitchen. Just then, Cogman entered the living room from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. Sir, breakfast is ready. Jacob said. Wait until the girls wake up. We'll eat together. Cogman nodded. Very well, sir. Jacob leaned back on the couch. By the way, how much was on those bank cards? A total of $1.15 billion, sir. Cogman said. Most of it came from Dimitri's account. Jacob's eyes widened slightly. How much was on Dimitri's card? 800 million. Cogman replied smoothly. Jacob let out a low whistle and grinned. Those bastards from the auction were loaded. According to Alina's memories, that was just what the Vegas branch made in 2 months. I can't imagine how much the people behind the auction make from all their branches in the States and overseas. Cogman tilted his head thoughtfully. Should we open our own auction house, sir? We could sell only bad people. Poachers, murderers. Jacob shot him a sharp glare. No, I'm not running a slave market. I have no problem killing bad people, but I will never sell them. Cogman shrugged. I was merely suggesting, sir. Jacob rubbed his temples. Don't ever suggest something like that again. Anyway, did you manage to transfer the money to our accounts? Not yet, sir. Today is Sunday. The banks won't process transactions until tomorrow. While I could hack them today, I prefer to do it during business hours, it's much easier that way. Fine, Jacob said. Once it's done, transfer 20 million to my personal card, and 5 million each to Allison and Lydia. You can invest the rest or start a company, like we talked about before. As you wish, sir. Cogman paused. And sir, when is our next scheduled outing to, maim and kill people? Jacob sighed. Cogman, stop thinking about killing all the time. Go do something useful. Grow our wealth, cook something, or buy yourself a female robot if that'll keep you busy. I am not a pervert like you, sir. I find no pleasure in such things. Cogman said. And growing our wealth is trivial. I could add billions to your account today if you wished. But breaking bones, crushing skulls, tearing out hearts, now that's satisfying. I love squeezing the life out of. Jacob groaned. Stop. Stop. You psychopathic murder bot. Go tend the garden or something. You're ruining my good mood. Cogman opened his mouth to reply, but Jacob raised a hand. No more talking. Go. Grumbling, Cogman turned and stomped toward the garden. Jacob sighed and leaned back on the couch. Malia, who had been watching silently the whole time, tilted her head. Jacob smiled and reached over, running his hand through her fur. Don't worry. He only kills bad people. Malia gave a soft whimper and rested her head on Jacob's thigh. He smiled faintly and went back to watching TV with her. After half an hour, Allison and Lydia finally came downstairs, both looking half asleep. Morning, Allison said, rubbing her eyes. Morning, Jacob replied with a grin. Sleep well. Lydia yawned. Like a rock. I didn't realize how tired I was. I didn't even have nightmares about killing people yesterday. Jacob said. I told you you'd get used to it. Besides, you can't call those monsters we killed yesterday people. Where's Cogman? Allison asked. He's sulking in the garden. Jacob said. What did he do this time? The usual. He was talking about killing and maiming people, so I sent him out. But he already made breakfast. Let's eat. They went to the kitchen and ate together, but Malia didn't follow. She was full from the snacks Jacob had given her. While eating, Jacob said. By the way, girls, guess how much money we earned from our little trip yesterday? Lydia said. 100 million. Maybe 200. Jacob smiled. How about you, Allison? How much do you think we got? Allison thought for a moment. It must be 400 million or more. Those monsters held auctions every week, and the people buying must have been rich, too. Jacob grinned. It's $1.15 billion. Lydia's eyes went wide. What? That much? Yep. Jacob confirmed. I told Cogman to transfer 5 million to each of the cards I gave you. Lydia hugged him. You're the best. I'm going to buy a nice car, something that suits a queen like me. Jacob kissed her. You can buy whatever you want. If you need more money, you just have to ask. He then looked at Allison. What about you? What do you want to buy? Allison smiled. I don't want anything in particular, so maybe I'll buy a car, too, a Ferrari or something like that. But are we going to be in trouble if we use that money? Don't worry about that, Jacob assured her. Cogman will take care of it and make it legally ours. After breakfast, they moved back to the living room, where Malia was still glued to the TV, watching her favorite wildlife show. Lydia looked at her. You really love watching animals kill each other, don't you? She picked up the remote. Can I switch the channel? Malia let out a low growl. Lydia chuckled. Okay, chill. I just want to see if what we did yesterday made the news. Then I'll switch back to your murder show. She changed to a news channel. The screen instantly filled with chaos, footage of the Vegas skyline, a massive explosion, and a shaky phone recording of the auction building collapsing into a crater. The news anchor's voice was grave. Authorities are still investigating the massive explosion that rocked the Las Vegas Strip last night. Officials suspect terrorism or gang violence, though no group has claimed responsibility. Then the footage switched to another angle, one taken from the street. The camera caught a figure dressed like the Joker breathing fire and fighting a massive, bull-like monster under the flickering city lights. Jacob complained. "Those bastards are making me look bad. Don't they have better footage? Shut up and let us hear what the anchor says." Allison scolded. The anchor continued. "Some witnesses believe this footage is from a movie set, but others claim it's real and that these two individuals were responsible for the massive explosion. We have footage of the bull creature tearing a man in half, and the Joker incinerating the bull creature, but we can't show it." Jacob leaned back on the couch, arms crossed, an amused smile on his lips. Next, the station brought in a paranormal expert. The man looked like a walking conspiracy theory, wild hair, dark circles under his eyes, and papers scattered around him. "The bull monster," he declared dramatically, "is clearly the result of a failed government experiment. Probably military genetic testing." The anchor, barely hiding a smirk, asked. "And the man who breathed fire at it?" The theorist snorted. "That's just alcohol and a lighter, a classic party trick." Allison couldn't hold back a snort. A party trick that turned a minotaur into ash. Jacob and Lydia chuckled. Allison turned and glared at him. "Remind me again why you had to throw a supernatural coming out party in the middle of Las Vegas." Jacob shrugged, stroking Malia's fur. "Isn't this more fun?" Lydia rolled her eyes. "I bet a lot of people will lose sleep for a few days after seeing your little horror show." "That's their problem," Jacob said dismissively. He gestured toward the TV. "Change the channel. Let's see what the others are saying." Lydia changed to another news station. This time, two so-called experts were arguing on a split screen. "It's an alien," one insisted, waving his arms dramatically. "It's a mythological minotaur, obviously," shouted the other, slamming his hand on the desk. They started yelling over each other while the flustered anchor tried, and failed, to regain control. Jacob smirked. "This is so much fun." Lydia switched again. Now a stern-looking government representative was giving a press conference. "Hey, why did you switch? I loved those two crazy guys." Jacob complained. "Shush," Allison said, leaning forward. "These videos are all fake," the government representative said firmly. "They are elaborate CGI hoaxes. As for the building, we believe the explosion was gang-related, and we are still investigating." Jacob laughed. The government's really doing its best to hide the truth. Lydia kept flipping channels, and froze when the next report showed actor Bryan Cranston being escorted by police. Bryan Cranston was briefly detained by authorities after a limousine rented under his character's name, Walter White, was found abandoned near the explosion site. The person who rented it was described as looking exactly like the actor. Cranston has since been cleared of all suspicion. Jacob burst out laughing. "Oh, come on. Poor guy was probably sleeping when it happened." Allison shook her head in disbelief. "You really caused a mess." "Come on, this is fun," Jacob said, his eyes sparkling with amusement. "The whole country, maybe the whole world, is busy now discussing whether that minotaur is real. The government and others who know the truth are probably trying their best to hide it. And I bet there are supernatural groups out there who liked what I did and are thinking of doing the same, exposing the supernatural to everyone." Allison said. "I just hope nothing bad happens, like a supernatural revolution or something. That would be even more fun," Jacob said with a grin. "Maybe I should start a revolution and rule this country." Lydia's eyes lit up. "That's crazy, but I wouldn't mind being the wife of the President of the United States." Jacob shook his head. No, not the wife of the President, but the wife of the King of America. That means you and Allison would be queens." Lydia's smile widened. "I like the sound of that even more." Hearing a low growl from the couch, Lydia quickly switched back to the animal channel. Malia immediately stopped growling and wagged her tail, satisfied. The three of them grabbed their phones and started scrolling. Within seconds, their social media feeds were flooded. Clips of the fight, wild conspiracy threads, and hashtags like #VegasMonster and #FireJoker, all racking up millions of views. Jacob chuckled, his eyes glinting with amusement. "Look at that, I'm trending." Lydia, scrolling through her phone, said. "They've arrested a lot of clowns in Vegas since yesterday." Jacob laughed. "That's hilarious." Allison sighed. I bet it's not just the people from the auction looking for you now. Probably the government, the FBI, and who knows who else. Maybe even NASA is looking for your alien ass. Jacob stretched lazily. They can look all they want. He smiled confidently. They'll never find me. Maybe next time I should make the news as Batman. Allison raised an eyebrow. There will be a next time. Definitely, Jacob said. So you girls should start thinking about what you want to disguise as. Lydia nodded. Let's just make sure not to cause any newsworthy trouble in Beacon Hills. That would draw a lot of unnecessary attention, and would probably expose us. Of course, Jacob agreed. We'll only cause trouble in other states. I don't want to expose myself. Not yet, at least. Chapter 81. Back Home Point. 2. Outside the mansion, Cogman, who had just finished tending the garden, heard a car park in front of the iron gate. He went to investigate and found Styles and Scott waiting by the jeep. Cogman nodded at Scott, then looked at Styles. What do you want, pillow humper? Hey, don't call me that. Styles protested. I was sleeping, okay. I thought the pillow was a girl. We're here to see Jacob. Cogman's eyes narrowed. Do you have an appointment? An appointment? Styles frowned. I didn't know we needed an appointment to see him. I see. Cogman replied smoothly. Then you are uninvited guests. Should I dispose of you before you ruin the sir's morning? Dispose of us? Styles stepped back. Scott, hurry up and howl or something to make Jacob come out before this psychopathic robot kills us. Can you just let me in, Cogman? Scott asked. Then you and Styles can continue, whatever this is. No, don't leave me alone with him. Styles pleaded. He might actually kill me. Cogman opened the gate and walked toward Styles with a smirk. Don't worry. I won't kill you. I'll just break a few of your bones. Styles opened his mouth to argue, but Jacob's voice came from inside the mansion. Cogman, stop messing around and let them in. As you wish, sir. Cogman said, stepping aside with an exaggerated gesture. Welcome. Scott walked toward the mansion while Styles got back in his jeep, drove through the gate, and parked in front of the entrance. They walked inside and found Lydia and Allison sitting together on a couch, while Malia lay lazily on Jacob's lap in a recliner. She lifted her head, watching the newcomers with curiosity. Styles froze mid-step. Jacob, did you catch a coyote and force it to be your pet? He walked over and reached out to pet her. Jacob raised a brow but didn't stop him. The next second, Malia bit Styles's hand and shook it like a chew toy before letting go. Ah, it bit me, Styles yelled, clutching his hand as blood dripped onto the floor, though the wound was already starting to heal. Allison, Lydia, and Jacob burst out laughing. She's not my pet, you idiot. Jacob said. She's a Werekoyote. Her name is Malia. Styles blinked, his face shifting from pain to shock, then to realization. An evil smirk appeared. Oh, she's Malia, your third wife, right? Jacob's laughter cut short. Wait, what? Lydia frowned. What do you mean, third wife? Allison turned to Jacob, arms crossed, eyes narrowing. Since when is Malia your wife? Even Malia tilted her furry head, giving Jacob a confused look. Jacob glared at Styles. He's lying. No, I'm not. Styles smiled. You literally told us. You said you had 3 wives when you and Melissa came back from your little date. Allison's expression froze. She walked over to Jacob, grabbed him by the ear, and yanked hard. Forget about Malia. Who is this Melissa he's talking about? Jacob winced. Ouch. Ow. He's lying. Allison, there was no date. Scott smiled, seeing a chance to get Jacob in trouble for taking his mom out. No, Styles isn't lying, and Melissa's my mom. Lydia blinked in disbelief. I knew you were a scumbag, Jay, but your friend's mother. That's low, even for a pervert like you. Allison let go of his ear, but not before giving it one last painful twist. You better start explaining. Jacob rubbed his ear. There's nothing to explain. I had dinner with her, once. She was sad, and I took her out to make her feel better. As a friend, nothing more. Styles smirked. But I remember you wiped the tears from her face and called her beautiful and. Jacob glared daggers at him. Cogman, you can kill Styles now. Cogman smiled and rubbed his hands together. As you wish, sir. Styles immediately dove behind the couch where Allison and Lydia were sitting. Peering out from his hiding spot, he pleaded. Girls, save me from your psychotic butler, please. Allison smiled. He's just joking, Cogman. You can't kill Styles. I know, my lady. Cogman said. But can I break a few of his bones? He'll. Allison shook her head. No, Cogman groaned. At least let me cut off his tongue. You can't do that either. Allison said. Styles shuddered. That's even worse than breaking my bones, you psycho. Cogman glared at Styles. Stop hiding behind my ladies and come face me like a man, you cowardly pillow humper. Jacob laughed. Pillow humper, what a nice nickname for Styles. No, it's not nice. Styles glared at Cogman. And you, I told you to stop calling me that. Cogman smirked. And what are you going to do about it? All right, Cogman, that's enough. Allison said. Stop arguing with Styles. My lady, can I at least punch him in the face? Just once. Nope. Cogman groaned in frustration, then turned to an empty armchair and began hitting it with a series of karate chops, kicks, and punches until it fell over. He calmly put it back in place, fixed his suit, and smiled. Anyone fancy a drink? Allison shook her head with an amused smile. Yeah, go make us some tea and bring some snacks. Right away, my lady. Cogman said, then headed to the kitchen. Styles cursed under his breath. Crazy bastard. Lydia smirked. Styles, we can protect you from Cogman, but only if you promise to tell us everything Jade is when we're not around from now on. Jacob smirked and looked at Styles. You can promise her, but she won't always be there to protect you from Cogman. And since you're a traitor, I'll go after Erica. Styles panicked. No, you can kill me, but please don't go after Erica. I really like her. Jacob then turned to Scott, who was still smiling. And you seem so pleased with yourself. Even after I helped protect your mom from Peter, you came here and helped Styles get me in trouble with my girls. So, you will pay for that. Scott stopped smiling. What are you going to do? Jacob said. I never thought about going after Melissa, but now I'm not so sure. Scott's eyes widened. What? No, you can't do that. He looked pleadingly at Allison and Lydia. Help me, please. Tell him not to go after my mom. Allison shrugged. Sorry, if he's decided to go after her, we can't help you. He's a pervert, and we can't change that even if we wanted to. Seeing both Styles and Scott looking depressed, Jacob felt better and smiled in satisfaction. But a sharp glare from Lydia and Allison made him cough awkwardly. All right, guys, he said, changing the subject. Tell me why you're here. Lydia interjected. Wait, first, Styles, wipe your blood from the floor where you bled when Malia bit you. Styles took a paper napkin from the table, wiped the drops of blood from the floor, and pocketed the napkin. Allison said. You can throw that in the trash. It's in the kitchen. Nope, Styles replied. That psycho is in there. I'm not going anywhere near him. Jacob looked at Scott. So, do you want to talk about something? Scott sighed. We came to talk about what happened in Vegas. Jacob raised a brow. Vegas. What about it? Scott frowned. The explosion. The news. The bull-like monster and the Joker. He glanced between Jacob and the girls. You guys didn't see it. Jacob said. Oh, you're talking about that. We saw it on TV. Crazy stuff. Styles sat next to Scott. Yeah, crazy. And somehow, while all that was happening, you four were out of town. Where were you guys? And that Joker looks a little like you, Jacob. Lydia met his gaze evenly. We went to Monterey. Styles squinted. Monterey? You expect me to believe that? Jacob smirked. Believe whatever you want, Styles. Scott asked. Do you guys think the supernatural will be exposed, and the government and normal humans will start hunting supernatural creatures? Jacob said. The government is already trying its best to cover things up because, unlike you, they know that hunting all supernatural creatures is an impossible, bad idea. Styles nodded. Yeah, first of all, supernatural creatures have superpowers. And no one knows how many humans are actually supernatural. It could be a quarter, or maybe even half of the world's population. Trying to hunt them all is a stupid idea that will result in a war between supernatural creatures and normal humans. You can imagine how that will end. Scott asked. Are you guys saying the government is aware of the supernatural side of the world? Lydia nodded. Of course. And I think most of the higher UPS are witches, wizards, vampires, or other creatures who can control people mentally. Are there normal humans who have a creature like that working for them, or they work for one? Jacob said. Scott, You should stop thinking that the only people who know about supernatural creatures are us and a few others. I'm sure billions of people are either supernatural themselves or know about the supernatural. They kept talking about what happened in Vegas and checking the news. Cogman brought tea and some snacks, and they continued their conversation until 2 p.m., when he called them for lunch. After lunch, Cogman drove Allison and Lydia back to their parents' houses, leaving Scott and Stiles in the mansion with Jacob and Malia. Jacob asked, "By the way, Scott, did you talk to your boss about what you are and what he is?" Scott said, "Yeah, I had a good talk with him. Like you said, he's a druid. He already helped me put a barrier of mountain ash around my house and taught me and my mom how to activate it." Stiles added, "He put one around my house, too." Jacob smirked. "Did he ask you if you know what I am?" Scott nodded. "He did. I told him you're a shapeshifter, but I have no idea what you are." Jacob smirked. "I see. Anyway, let's go play some video games. We haven't played in a while." With that, they went to the gaming room and started playing. After 2 hours, Stiles and Scott left. Jacob went to the bathroom and poured Esdeath's bath water directly from his pocket dimension into the toilet. Then he took Malia for a walk in the woods. She led the way to a crashed car and sat there, staring at it. Jacob sat next to her, stroking her fur, and didn't say a word. When the sky began to darken, they returned to the mansion. Chapter 82. The Rotten Scent. 10 days had passed since Jacob burned the auction building in Vegas. In those 10 days, not much had happened. The commotion Jacob caused in Vegas died down, but people all around the country still talked about the Minotaur. Peter and Derek were lying low, the Argents hadn't tracked them down, and Jacob's daily sign-ins these past 10 days had yielded only kitchen essentials or normal food like cans of tuna or a few dollars. That morning, he woke to the familiar weight and warmth of Malia curled against him, tucked into the hollow of his arm like a living pillow. Allison and Lydia had spent the night at their parents' houses. Jacob stroked her fur gently and thought. System, sign in. Daily sign-in successful. Rewards obtained. A plunger for your toilet. $50. A measuring tape. He sighed. I've been really unlucky these past few days. He got out of bed, waking Malia in the process. Sorry. Go back to sleep. I've got school. She curled back up and was soon asleep again. He took a quick shower, dressed, and went downstairs. Cogman was waiting in the kitchen. Morning, Cogman. Jacob said. Good morning, sir. Cogman replied. Should I drive you to school today, sir, or are you taking your bike? No, I'll take my bike today. Jacob said, grabbing a slice of toast. Very well, sir. Cogman said. After finishing his meal, Jacob rode his bike to school. At school, Jacob met Scott and Stiles. Morning, guys. Jacob said. Morning. Scott and Stiles answered in unison. Jacob raised a brow at how cheerful they seemed. Why are you two smiling like idiots? Did something good happen? Stiles pointed toward the parking lot, where Jackson had just climbed out of his Porsche, looking confident as he walked toward the school. We took Jackson to Peter yesterday, and Peter gave him the bite. Jackson paid us 10 grand. I see. Jacob said. He glanced at Jackson and thought. I wonder if he's still going to turn into a Conima. Shaking off the thought, he turned to Scott. Did you pick out a car yet? Yeah, Scott said, grinning. I found a nice 2000 Mustang GT for $6,000. It's owned by an older gentleman, the mileage is a little less than 50,000, and it's in great condition. Title and registration will cost an extra $600, so $6,600 total. I gave Stiles $1,000, I gave my mom $2 grand, kept $400 for myself, and I'm going to get the car today after school. Jacob tilted his head. Did you tell Melissa where the money came from? Scott said. I told her I did a werewolf a favor, and he gifted me 10 grand. She took the $2,000 and said she really needs it to pay some bills. How is she, by the way? Jacob asked. I should give her a visit. No, you stay away from her. Scott snapped. Jacob said. Relax, I'm 16. I don't want to date your mom. Then he smiled. I just want to build a good relationship with her and make sure she stays single until I turn 18. Scott's eyes flashed yellow, and he let out a low, warning growl. Jacob laughed and ran off toward Allison and Lydia, who had just arrived at school. Scott calmed down and looked at Stiles, who was quieter than usual. What? No sarcastic comment. I've got plenty. Styles shrugged. But I don't want to say anything about Jacob dating your mom in front of him. I don't want him getting upset and going after Erica. Then he smirked. But now that he's gone, I can say something sarcastic about your future stepdad if you want. Scott got angry when he heard the word stepdad. You know what? I think I'll go after Erica myself. Styles stared at him wide-eyed for a second, then burst out laughing. Why are you laughing? Scott said. I'm serious. Ah ha 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 ha. You are serious. Styles managed to say between laughs. Ha 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 ha. Stop laughing, Scott said, growing more frustrated. Styles finally caught his breath, wiping a tear from his eye. I'm sorry, it's just, that's the funniest thing you've ever said. You think I couldn't get her if I wanted to? Scott challenged. I thought my laughing was an obvious answer. Styles retorted. What do you think you have that I don't? You used to be the lacrosse co-captain, but now I'm just as good as you after Jacob gave me that potion. If I wanted to be captain, I could, but since we're best friends, I don't want to take that from you. Besides, Erica likes me, and she would never be interested in your stupid ass. Hey, you didn't have to call me stupid. Scott grumbled. Aren't you failing a few classes? Styles shot back. Not anymore, Scott said, a touch of pride in his voice. Styles snorted. Anyway, I thought we were brothers. I never thought I'd have to worry about you going after my girlfriend. I really want to beat your ass for saying you'd go after her. So, I'm not talking to you for the rest of the morning. With that, Styles turned and walked into the school building, leaving Scott standing alone, scratching his head awkwardly. After school, there was a lacrosse game, and Jacob and the girls went to see it since there was nothing else to do. In the bleachers, Allison saw her parents and Kate sitting there. What are they doing here? She asked. Jacob said, I don't know. If I have to guess, maybe they're looking for Peter's betas since they couldn't find him and Derek. I'm going to ask them. Allison said, then walked toward her parents. Jacob noticed Melissa sitting beside Sheriff Stilinski. He took Lydia's hand, walked over, and sat next to her. Jacob, how are you? Melissa greeted with a warm smile as he sat. Hey, Melissa, long time no see. Jacob said, is Scott still making trouble for you? Melissa chuckled. No, he's surprisingly well behaved, more than usual since the last time I saw you. Then Jacob looked at Scott on the field, who was glaring at him. Is he? Anyway, if you want to teach him a lesson, just let me know. Melissa reached over and twisted his ear lightly. I can take care of my son, kid. But thanks. Lydia, on Jacob's other side, pinched him. He took the hand that was pinching him and kissed it, making her pout. The game started, and Scott was playing rough. Instead of reprimanding him, Coach was actually cheering him on and arguing with the referee every time a foul was whistled against Scott. As the game continued, Scott looked at the bleachers, where his mom wasn't even paying attention to him but was talking and laughing with Jacob. His eyes glowed, and he ran to one of his own teammates, bumped him hard, took the ball, and ran toward the opposite team's goal to score. Styles caught up with Scott. Scott, calm down. Let's go check on Sean. I think you hurt him badly. I swear, when you hit him, I heard his bones breaking. Scott came back to his senses and walked with Styles toward his teammate to check on him, but the guy named Sean stood up and pushed Scott away. I'm fine, Sean snapped as he walked off. As Sean walked away, Scott looked at Styles and whispered. Sean is like me. I think he just shifted when he pushed me. Styles whispered back. A werewolf. Scott said. No, he's something else. And whatever he is, he smells bad. Like, really bad. Jacob, sitting in the bleachers, felt a wave of disgust the moment Sean shifted and pushed Scott away. Lydia whispered, leaning close. I don't like that guy who just pushed Scott. He feels wrong. Jacob made sure the sheriff doesn't hear them and said. I know. I think he's a Wendigo. Are you sure? Lydia asked. Jacob said. Yes. You can't tell when a Wendigo doesn't shift, but when they do, they smell rotten, and he just shifted when he shoved Scott. You stay here with Melissa. Melissa, who was listening, whispered, leaning close. What's a Wendigo? Lydia, tell her. Jacob said. Lydia nodded, and Jacob got down from the bleachers. He walked near the field and called Styles over. Styles jogged over. Can you stop messing around and keep away from Melissa, at least until the game's over? Scott is going to lose control and hurt someone. Don't worry about that, Jacob said. Tell me, what's the last name of that guy, Sean? Walcott, Styles said. Jacob thought. So, he is the Wendigo from season 4. He and his family have a secret stash of human bodies in their basement. Styles brought Jacob out of his thoughts. Why are you asking about his last name? Is it because he's a shapeshifter too? No, it's because he's a Wendigo, and I need his last name to know where he lives. Jacob said. Styles frowned. What are you going to do? Let's just say your dad will be very busy tomorrow. Jacob glanced back at the field. Now go play your stupid game. Coach is coming this way, and I don't feel like talking to him. Styles nodded and didn't ask any more questions. He jogged back to continue the game as Jacob moved to a remote corner of the lacrosse field and spoke to Allison telepathically. Allison, come here and bring your parents too. Not long after, Allison, her parents, and Kate came and stood next to him. Victoria said. Allison said you wanted to talk to us. What's going on? Jacob's expression was serious. There's a Wendigo on the field right now, and you know what that means, right? Chris frowned. If that's true, there's probably a family of them living here in Beacon Hills. Yes, and we can't let them live past tonight. Jacob said. So, this is your chance to show Allison what hunters really should do. Chris nodded. Do you know where he lives? Jacob shook his head. No, just his full name, Sean Walcott. That's good enough, Chris said, stepping aside and pulling out his phone. I'll make a few calls. As Chris walked off, Victoria turned to Jacob. How do you know he's a Wendigo? He shifted, and I caught his scent. Jacob said. I've dealt with Wendigos before. Although it was Cogman who killed them, I still remember their scent. They smell like rotting flesh. Kate said. I've dealt with one before. Nasty things, but not that strong. They're easy to kill. I guess you've never met one in its alpha form. Jacob said. I've read about them and have a picture of a Wendigo in its alpha form, and it is not pretty to look at. A deer skull for a head, a furry body, and red glowing eyes instead of white. They're monsters among monsters. Victoria nodded. We have that picture in the bestiary too, but no one has seen an alpha Wendigo in centuries. Allison said. And I hope we don't see it either. She looked at Jacob. Do you think Sean's family has an alpha? Jacob shook his head. Probably not. Chris rejoined them, slipping his phone back into his pocket. I got their address. We'll hit them tonight at 11 p.m. All right, Jacob said. You guys get ready. Cogman and I will join you at your place. He'll sulk for a week if I don't take him with us tonight, and he'll probably start playing creepy music on his piano. I'd rather not wake up to him playing creepy music at 3 a.m. Allison laughed. Yeah, that sounds exactly like him. Jacob smirked. Are you going with your parents, or with me and Lydia? I'll go with my parents. Allison said. I want to see how they prepare for a hunt. Jacob leaned in, kissed her, and said. All right then, I'll meet you at your parents' house. Then he started walking toward Lydia, waving over his shoulder. See you guys later. As he reached Melissa and Lydia, he kissed Melissa on the cheek and said, good night. Melissa raised a brow. You're not going after that Wendigo, are you? Yes, we are, Jacob said. We can't leave something that dangerous living in Beacon Hills. Wendigos eat people, Melissa. Is Scott going with you? She asked, concern clear in her voice. No, he doesn't want to kill people, even monsters like Wendigos, so we will not take him with us. Jacob said. Seeing that Melissa's expression had changed and she obviously didn't agree with killing people, Jacob sighed. Don't give me that look, Melissa. If you want, I'll call you and Scott afterward. You can see for yourself what Wendigos really do. And don't worry, I would never encourage Scott to take a life. He chose not to kill, and I respect his choice. Melissa thought for a moment, then nodded. All right, call me when it's done. I want to see with my own eyes how horrible they really are. Jacob smiled faintly. All right. He and Lydia walked toward the parking lot. Did you bring your car? He asked. Lydia said. No, I came in Allison's car. She drove to school today. Then let's ride my bike home. Jacob said, tossing her a helmet. They climbed onto his bike and rode off toward the mansion. Chapter 83. The Wendigo Hunt. Jacob and Lydia arrived home and greeted Malia. Then, Jacob headed to the kitchen, where he found Cogman cooking and singing a depressing British war song. Cogman, Hurry up and finish cooking, we have work to do. Jacob said. And please stop singing that horrible song. Cogman stopped cooking and looked at Jacob with excitement. What kind of work are we talking about, sir? The kind you love, Jacob replied. Cogman's eyes lit up. What are we killing tonight? A family of Wendigos. Then let's go now. You can have dinner later, sir. Cogman urged, already moving to put the food away. Jacob held up a hand. Either you feed me, or we are not going. And we're not leaving until 10:30. We'll pass by the Argents' house first, then we'll go after the Wendigos. Jacob left the kitchen, leaving Cogman to cook in a suddenly good mood, now humming a happy tune. After dinner, Cogman drove Lydia and Jacob to the Argents' house. Arriving there, Jacob contacted Allison telepathically. Allison, we are outside. Are you guys ready yet? We are. Just 5 minutes and we'll be out. She replied. Are you going to ride with us or take the Rolls-Royce? I think you should ride with us. The Royce is too eye-catching. Alright, we'll ride with you guys. 5 minutes later, the Argents emerged. Lydia and Jacob rode with Allison and her parents, while Cogman rode with Kate in her car, an arrangement that made her visibly nervous. After a short drive, they parked a fair distance from the Wendigo family's house. So, what's the plan now? Jacob asked. Chris said. We'll go and knock on the door and force our way inside after they open it. That's it. Jacob raised an eyebrow. I thought you were going to disguise yourselves as a lost couple or salesman or something. This is just boring. You guys suck. Allison shot him a glare. He raised his hands in surrender. Fine, fine. I'll shut up. Jacob looked out of the car window and spotted Sean on his bicycle heading toward his house. Wait here, he said. I'll be right back. Where are you going? Allison asked. Just wait. He got out of the car and, after making sure no one was watching, used his superspeed. He caught Sean, dragged him into a dark alley, and dropped him on the ground. Sean was startled. Everything happened so fast. Before he could react, he found himself in a dark alley on the ground. He stood up and looked at Jacob. Who are you? And what do? He recognized Jacob. Wait, I've seen you in school before. What do you want? Jacob didn't bother to answer. His hand moved in a blur, catching Sean by the throat. He inserted his claws into the back of Sean's neck and began reading his memories. When he was done, Jacob's eyes glowed golden, his face a mask of rage. He choked Sean and slammed him against the wall. You damn monster! How many people have you and your family eaten? Sean, dazed from the forcible memory reading, looked at Jacob with terror. He shifted, his eyes glowed white and his teeth became sharp and yellow. He struggled violently, trying to free himself from Jacob's grip, but he couldn't move Jacob's arm at all. The moment Sean shifted, a horrible, rotten smell hit Jacob like a physical punch. Disgusted, Jacob punched him, knocking him unconscious and nearly breaking his skull. He watched Sean shift back to normal after losing consciousness, spat to the side, and muttered. Disgusting bastard. Then he dragged Sean's limp body back to the cars. Allison and the others saw him coming and got out. Lydia looked at Jacob, concerned. What's wrong? You look pissed. I read his memories, Jacob said, his voice grim. Allison asked. What did you see? Their basement is a cold room, filled with human bodies. Hanging like butchered cattle. Lydia's eyes widened. How many bodies are we talking about? Sean doesn't know the exact number. Jacob said grimly. But he knows there are more than 20. His parents and older brother hunt outside of Beacon Hills to avoid suspicion, driving to other towns and cities to find their victims. Then they bring them back here. Sometimes they bring their victims alive so they can kill them slowly. They like fresh blood. Damn those monsters, Allison muttered, her voice shaking with anger. Jacob added, and they have guests tonight. He then looked at Kate. Remember the Alpha Wendigo we talked about? Kate's eyes widened. One of them is an Alpha Wendigo. Jacob nodded. Yes. Sean's grandfather is an Alpha Wendigo, and his grandmother is almost an Alpha, too. Apparently, for a Wendigo to reach Alpha status, it needs to eat the organs of other Alpha creatures. According to Sean's memories, his grandfather ate 2 Alpha werewolves and an Alpha weregator to become an Alpha. His grandmother has only eaten 1 Alpha werewolf, so although she is stronger than normal Wendigos, she hasn't become a full Alpha yet. Victoria said. That is going to be a problem. There is no problem, Jacob stated firmly. You guys take care of Sean's brother and parents. Leave the grandparents for us. Now let's go. They caught a guy for dinner, so we better hurry, we might be able to save him. As they walked toward Sean's house, a system window appeared in front of Jacob's eyes. Available sign in. Location sign in. Host can sign in inside the Wendigo's basement. Jacob thought. Finally, a location sign in. System, let's not talk about event sign-ins, but why didn't you give me a quest or a location sign-in opportunity when I went to Vegas? Host can only get quests and location sign-ins from events and locations related to the Teen Wolf series canon. Jacob complained internally. You are too cheap. System. Inside the Walcott house. The air was warm and filled with the savory, blatant scent of a home-cooked meal, yet beneath it lay a thick, coppery undertone of blood and the faint, sickly smell of decay. Welcome home. Cross-stitch hung on the wall beside a framed family photo where everyone smiled a little too widely, their eyes a touch too hungry. In the dining room, Christina Walcott, a woman with a kind face and a floral apron, placed a large platter of oven-roasted ribs on the table. The meat was glazed and beautifully presented, but to a trained eye, the bone structure was unnervingly, unmistakably human. David Walcott, the picture of a proud father and husband, leaned in, picked up a rib, and took a hearty bite. He chewed thoughtfully. As expected from you, Christina, the taste is great, he said, smiling at his wife. But these ribs are a bit too lean. You know how my mom loves juicy meat. Christina wiped her hands on her apron and gestured with a nod towards the corner of the room, where a terrified fat man was tied to a chair, gagged, his face pale and slick with sweat. Aren't we eating him? She said sweetly. He is juicy enough. David chuckled. True, true. Their older son, Michael, entered the room, his eyes scanning the table. Mom, did you make me my favorite? Of course, honey. Christina beamed. The meatloaf is in the kitchen. I made it from the thighs of that girl you caught yourself. Michael kissed his mother's cheek. You're the best. At the head of the table, the grandfather drummed his fingers impatiently. Where is Sean? I'm starving. His voice was a dry rasp. I talked to him 10 minutes ago. David said, checking his watch. He said he was on his way home. Just then, a knock echoed from the front door. See, that's him. David said. Michael, open the door for your brother. Michael jogged to the door and pulled it open, a greeting smile on his lips that died instantly. It wasn't Sean. Cogman stood on the doorstep, impeccably dressed and wearing a serene smile. Good evening. Michael's eyes darted down and saw his younger brother, unconscious and being held up like a sack of potatoes by the cheerful butler. Behind Cogman, he saw a crowd of grim-faced strangers, Jacob, the Argents, and Lydia. Who are you people? Michael snarled, his eyes beginning to glow a sickly white. What did you do to Sean? Cogman's smile didn't falter. He is fine. He is just unconscious. As for us, he said, his voice dripping with fake politeness, we are here to have fun with your family. Before Michael could process the statement, Cogman's fist shot out with piston-like force. It connected with his face with a sickening crunch, sending the young Wendigo flying backward through the entryway. In a flash, Cogman was on him again, delivering a brutal kick that launched him into the dining room to crash against the table. Plates and cutlery clattered to the floor as Cogman stepped calmly into the room. Jacob and the others entered the house, closed the door behind them, and followed Cogman into the dining room. The moment David and Christina saw their son Michael crash into the dining table and their younger boy, Sean, limp in Cogman's grip, their human facades dissolved. Their eyes glowed a sickly white, their teeth sharpened into yellowed, jagged fangs, and the disgusting, rotten scent of their true nature flooded the room. But they didn't get a chance to attack. Victoria, Chris, and Kate raised their silenced weapons and fired. David, Christina, and the dazed Michael were shot between the eyes and dropped dead to the floor. Simultaneously, Cogman looked down at the unconscious Sean in his grasp. With a casual motion, his hand shot into the boy's chest and emerged clutching a still-beating heart. He dropped the body with a dismissive thud. The two grandparents, who had been frozen in shock, snapped back to their senses. The grandmother shifted with a guttural snarl. She was far stronger than her children, her eyes blazed white, her face elongated into a deer-like visage, and her fingers sprouted into long, razor-sharp claws. She lunged at the nearest threat, Victoria. Victoria raised her gun, but the Wendigo grandmother was impossibly fast, dodging the silenced shot. She closed the distance, her claws poised to slash Victoria's throat. But a powerful gust of wind erupted from Allison's mouth, slamming into the Wendigo grandmother and sending her crashing into the far wall. Allison stepped forward, her eyes glowing green, and the air around her hummed with energy. "Mom, let me take care of her," she said, her voice steady. The katana, Shisui, materialized from her space ring into her hand. As her fingers closed around the hilt, a swirling coat of green wind sheathed the blade. The Wendigo grandmother scrambled out of the shattered drywall with a furious roar and charged again. Allison was ready. She met the charge with a single, fluid slash. A streak of green light followed the blade's path, and the Wendigo's arm flew from her body, landing with a wet thud. The creature staggered back, shrieking in agony. A low, bone-chilling growl filled the room. The grandfather was shifting. His body expanded, cracking and stretching until he stood nearly 8 feet tall. His head transformed completely into a white deer skull with jagged antlers, and his eyes glowed red. With a speed that turned his huge body into a blur, he launched himself at Allison. Jacob watched, arms crossed. He decided to let Allison defend herself. Allison reacted instantly, raising her free hand. A shimmering energy shield materialized in front of her. The Alpha Wendigo's massive claws slammed into it with a sound like shattering glass. The shield cracked violently but held, the force of the blow causing Allison to grit her teeth and slide back a few inches. The Alpha Wendigo reared back for another strike, but Jacob had seen enough. In a burst of motion, he appeared between Allison's shield and the Wendigo. He leapt, his own hand closing around the base of the Wendigo's antlered skull. With raw, overwhelming force, he slammed the massive creature face-first into the hardwood floor. The impact was thunderous, splintering the boards and cracking the bone of the Wendigo's skull. A pained, gurgling roar escaped the Wendigo. Jacob stood up, dusted off his hands, and delivered a brutal kick to the monster's side, sending it skidding across the room to stop at Cogman's feet. "He is all yours," Jacob said calmly. Cogman's eyes lit up. "Thank you, sir." "And, Cogman," Jacob added, his voice dropping to a cold, flat tone. Cogman, who had just punched the struggling Wendigo back to the ground, looked up. "Yes, sir. Make his death as painful and slow as possible." Cogman gave a deep, theatrical bow. "With pleasure, sir." He grabbed one of the Wendigo's antlers. "Let's have some fun." With a sickening crack, he broke the antler off and immediately drove the sharp, broken end deep into the Wendigo's chest. Jacob waved a hand in front of his nose. "Cogman, drag him to another room and have all the fun you want with him. He stinks." "Of course, sir." Cogman began dragging the shrieking, struggling Alpha Wendigo away, punching and kicking him as he went. The angry, pained roars of the Wendigo echoed from the hallway. The grandmother, clutching her severed stump, saw her powerful alpha husband being dragged away like a toy. Knowing she was doomed, she made a desperate attempt to escape, turning to sprint towards the nearest window. Allison didn't even move from her spot. She simply gestured with her free hand, and 2 razor-sharp wind arrows shot forth. They struck the grandmother, embedding themselves in the back of her knees. The creature crumpled to the floor with a cry. She turned her deer-like face toward Allison, a final, hateful growl rumbling in her throat. Allison responded with 2 dismissive flicks of her wrist. 2 crescent blades of wind shot from Shisui, slicing through the air and through the Wendigo's body with a sickening, wet sound. The creature fell apart into several cleanly severed pieces. Silence descended upon the ravaged dining room, broken only by the wet, choking screams and the sound of splintering bone that continued to emanate from down the hall. Chris looked at Jacob and said, "Your butler is a psychopath." Jacob nodded his head, a faint, grim smile on his lips. "Yeah, he is. I almost feel sorry for that poor bastard he's having fun with." Chapter 84. Aftermath. After dealing with the Wendigos, Jacob pulled out his phone and sent a text to Scott and Styles. "You guys can come if you want to see what Wendigos really are. Wear hoodies. And bring Melissa with you," she said she wanted to see. Then he sent them the address of the Walcotts. After that, he turned to the Argents, his expression serious. "A friend of mine is on his way. He's a werewolf, but not by choice. Peter Hale bit him the night we went looking for Laura Hale's body in the woods." He watched as Chris, Victoria, and Kate exchanged quick, sharp glances. Jacob's eyes narrowed. Scott is a good friend of mine and Allison. Don't even think about using him to get to Peter. He has nothing to do with Peter or the Hales drama. He looked directly at Victoria and Kate. And don't even think about hurting him. Especially you two. Mom, Scott is a nice person. Allison said. Jacob taught him how to control himself, so please don't harm him. Victoria folded her arms. Don't worry. As long as he doesn't hurt any. Jacob's eyes flashed a brilliant, dangerous gold, cutting her off. I said, don't think about harming him. Even if he did hurt or kill someone. Am I clear? Victoria said. We are hunters. Our job is to protect the innocent. Jacob's eyes faded back to normal. He snorted. Yeah, right. If you're so righteous, then kill Kate. She's a monster who kills the innocent. Kate stiffened. Hey, I'm not stupid enough to harm your friend, so don't bring me into this. Chris coughed awkwardly. Ahem. Don't worry, kid. We won't touch your friends. Kate quickly changed the subject, pointing to the terrified man still tied to the chair in the corner, his eyes wide with panic. What are we going to do with him? Let the cops deal with him. Jacob said. Allison frowned. But he saw our faces. Don't worry about that. Jacob assured her. I'll take care of it. The basement. After that, Jacob, Lydia, and the Argents descended into the Walcott's basement. The moment the door opened, the air grew cold, and the metallic stench of old blood and the nauseating odor of decay hit them like a wall. The scene that greeted them was one from a slaughterhouse nightmare. Human bodies. Dozens, hung from hooks like butchered cattle, skin pale, limbs stiff. Some were missing parts, some were cut open as if waiting to be portioned, and others were stripped down to the bone. It was a grotesque testament to the Walcott family's appetites. Lydia's face tightened with fury. These sick bastards. Allison clenched her fists, shaking with barely contained rage. Damn monsters. In contrast, the veteran Argents showed little outward reaction. Chris scanned the room with a grim, clinical detachment. I've seen worse. He stated flatly. There are a lot of creatures like Wendigos. Yeah, Kate said. This is what most supernatural creatures do. Jacob didn't speak. He only looked at the bodies, at what was left of these people. Then he spoke silently in his mind. System. Sign in. Location sign in successful. Rewards obtained. Absolute anonymity. A permanent passive ability. Once merged, your energy and natural scent will be completely masked. To other supernatural creatures, you will appear as an ordinary human unless you actively use your powers or unleash your aura. Phoenix Down X20 Final Fantasy, a phoenix feather capable of restoring a dying person to full health. It can cure injuries caused by dark magic and curses and can be used as a weapon against dark creatures like vampires and zombies. Note: it cannot revive the dead. Zombie Summoning Ability. After learning this ability, the host can summon 10 zombies, each as strong as a beta werewolf, or 2 zombies with the strength of an alpha werewolf. If the zombies are destroyed, you must wait 24 hours to resummon them. Warning: the zombies can spread the zombie virus, infecting not only normal humans but also supernatural beings. The host must use caution when summoning them. Jacob scanned the rewards and thought. Finally, something useful. I can finally hide my energy. Thank you, system, I needed that. Phoenix Down is useful, I guess, but I hope I never need to use it. His expression darkened. And that zombie summoning ability? Yeah, no, destroy it. I'm not turning this world into a zombie apocalypse. Are you sure, host? You may need it someday. No, I'll never need that. Destroy it. As you wish. Ability destroyed. Good. Now merge the absolute anonymity ability into my body. Are you sure, host? Yes. A warm pulse spread through his veins. Ability merged successfully. Jacob exhaled softly, a faint smile touching his lips. Upstairs. While Jacob and the others were in the basement, Melissa, Stiles, and Scott arrived and entered the house. They froze in the doorway of the dining room, taking in the gruesome sight of the dead Walcott family. Melissa froze for half a second, then exhaled slowly. She'd seen dead bodies countless times at the hospital. Stiles swallowed hard but handled it. Seeing dead bodies wasn't new to him. Scott, on the other hand, staggered back and nearly vomited. He clamped a hand over his mouth, face pale. Stiles muttered, "Yeah, my dad's gonna have a massive headache tonight." Melissa glanced at the bodies again. Did Jacob do all of this? Scott thought quickly. If I tell her Jacob killed people, she might freak out and stay away from him, hopefully. Aloud, he said, I don't know if Jacob did this or not, but he told us he's killed people before. Melissa's eyes widened. When you say he killed people, what kind of people are we talking about? Bad people. Styles interjected before Scott could stop him, defending Jacob. He killed a wizard and a few hunters who came after him. And he told us about the memories he saw in that wizard's head. Styles shivered. What he told us about those memories was nightmare fuel, and he only told us a little bit. Scott shot Styles a furious glare. Styles frowned. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Nothing, Scott said, but internally he groaned. Stupid Styles. Why did he have to tell her that? He should have let her think Jacob is a ruthless killer. I wish she'd see him as a monster and stay away from him. Just then, Cogman entered the dining room. He had just finished his fun with the Alpha Wendigo and was heading to the basement. His suit was now spattered and smeared with dark blood. Styles tensed the moment he saw him. Cogman stopped, looked directly at him, and said, Pillow Humper, why are you here? Styles groaned loudly. Stop calling me that. We're here because Jacob told us to come. Then he squinted at Cogman's blood-soaked suit. Why are you covered in blood? Cogman's face lit up with a creepy, genuine smile. I was just having fun in the other room with an Alpha Wendigo. He didn't die quickly, which was to my liking. Breaking every bone in his body and stabbing him with his own antlers was delightful. His eyes took on a distant, blissful look. Ah, you should have heard the beautiful sound of him choking on his own blood. All right, that's enough, you psycho. Styles cut him off, shuddering. Where are Jacob and the others? In the basement, Cogman replied. Let's go. Wait, Melissa said, pointing at the terrified, bound man in the corner. What about him? Should we release him? Is he a Wendigo? Cogman waved a dismissive, blood-stained hand. He is not a Wendigo. We saved him. He is just some unlucky bastard who was going to be the main course tonight. Leave him be. Sir hasn't said what he wants done with him, so we can't release him yet. With that, Cogman headed for the basement stairs, and the three of them, with a shared sense of dread, followed him. Melissa grabbed Scott's arm, pulling him close and whispering, her eyes fixed on Cogman's back. Who is the psychopath? Scott sighed. He's Jacob's butler. In the basement. Styles, Melissa, and Scott joined Jacob and the others. The stench hit them first. Metallic. Cold. Wrong. Bodies dangled from hooks along the ceiling. Men and women, drained, butchered, carved up like livestock. Melissa's breath hitched. This is terrible. It is. Jacob agreed, his voice flat. He then gestured toward Styles, who was visibly trembling. But I think Styles is excited. Look, he's shaking. I'm shaking because it's cold. Styles snapped. Jacob raised an eyebrow, a faint smirk playing on his lips. Are you sure? Aren't you excited to see all these dead women? You are, after all, into necrophilia. That was the last straw for Styles. He grabbed Jacob by the collar. How many times do I have to say I don't have any interest in corpses? Jacob smiled. I don't believe you. Jacob. Melissa's voice was full of disappointment. She was looking at him with profound sadness. Is this a joke to you? Jacob pried Styles's hands from his collar and turned to her, his smirk vanishing. What do you mean? Melissa gestured around the nightmarish basement. We are standing in a basement filled with dead people, hanging like butchered animals. They had lives. They had families. They had loved ones. And yet you're here laughing and joking. How can you act like this? For a moment, Jacob just looked at her. Then a hollow, bitter laugh escaped him. Then what do you want me to do? Cry? Scream? This isn't the first time I've seen something like this. His voice began to lose its calm, gaining a hard, ragged edge. I've seen people being sold for sex, or like cattle to be eaten. I've seen human organs, blood, and body parts auctioned off to the highest bidder. He continued, his eyes darkening. And I've seen horrors in the memories of the monsters I've killed, horrors you can't even imagine, no matter how dark your thoughts get. I've seen babies sacrificed for power. I've seen girls, virgins no older than me, raped and then slaughtered in rituals. I've seen things. His voice cracked, and he looked away, fists clenched. Things that would keep me awake for the rest of my life if I ever let myself truly think about them for even a minute. Melissa stared at him, stunned into silence. So tell me, Melissa. Jacob finished. What do you want me to do? Allison reached out and gently caught his hand. Jay, calm down. He flinched at her touch, then took a deep, shuddering breath. I'm sorry, he said, softer now. It's just, the world we live in is messed up. And I can't let myself think too much about the horrible things I've seen. Because the second I do, my mind goes to the worst possible places. I start imagining losing Allison and Lydia. And if something bad ever happened to them, I'd do terrible things. And I mean really terrible things. He continued. I'm not like a werewolf who loses control by accident, I'd lose control on purpose. I'm possessive, arrogant, proud, and greedy. If I let those parts of me loose, I'll turn into a real monster. I'd end up killing anyone who even looks at my girls the wrong way, I'd take a life on just a suspicion. So I joke. I laugh. Even in a place like this. Because I need to keep my mind busy. I need to build a wall between myself and all the death I've seen and caused, or I will lose my mind. Melissa swallowed hard. I'm sorry, kid, she said softly. I've seen dead people before at the hospital. You see families crying, mourning their loved ones, and it's always heartbreaking. You think you get used to it over the years, but you don't. You just learn to ignore it enough to keep working. She looked at the hanging corpses again, her face pale. But this is different. This is pure evil, and I shouldn't have judged you for how you cope. I thought you were being disrespectful, but, I'm sorry. Jacob said. Don't worry about it. He looked around the basement one last time. We've seen enough. Let's get out of this hellhole. They went upstairs, and soon everyone left the house. Everyone except Jacob and Cogman, who remained in the dining room. Jacob walked over to the terrified man still tied to the chair in the corner. He pulled the memory neuralizer from his pocket dimension. Cogman, look away. This thing can erase memories, and I don't know if it will work on you. What about you, sir? Cogman asked. My mind is protected, so it won't affect me. Besides, it only works if you look directly at the flash. I told you to look away just in case. As Cogman turned around, Jacob lifted the neuralizer, then paused. He retrieved a pair of dark sunglasses from his pocket dimension and put them on. The only thing missing is a black suit. He muttered. As soon as Jacob peeled away the duct tape, the man looked up at him, his face pale and slick with sweat. Are you going to kill me? He stammered, his eyes searching Jacob's for any sign of mercy. No, Jacob said calmly. But tell me, how did you get caught by this family? The man said nervously. I own a bookstore. Christina was a customer. She came today and started flirting with me. She told me her husband was out of town and that she wanted to have me for dinner at her house. Then she winked, kissed my cheek. No, actually, she licked my cheek and said, delicious. Those were her exact words. I thought. Jacob cut him off. You thought she wanted to sleep with you. But what she really wanted was to eat your dumb ass. I didn't know monsters existed. The man whined. His eyes then fixed on the device in Jacob's hand. And I know what that is. It's a memory neuralizer. Are men in black real? Are aliens real? Please, don't erase my memories. I want to work with you guys. Jacob stared at him, amused. Are you married? Yes. And I have kids, but they'll understand. Jacob pinched the bridge of his nose. How does your wife treat you? She treats me well, she's a good wife, but I'm getting bored of her. So, can you please make me a man in black? Cogman, who had been listening, turned his head slightly. We should have let the Wendigos eat him before we killed them. Shall I just dispose of this pig, sir? Tempting, Jacob admitted. But we can't kill him. All right, Cogman, look away. Once Cogman averted his gaze, Jacob activated the memory neuralizer. A bright flash filled the room. You never saw us, and you never saw the monsters. Jacob instructed the now dazed man. Tell the cops these people kidnapped you and wanted to eat you, and that's all you know. You were unconscious the entire time and didn't see who killed them. And when you go back to your family, you will treat your wife like a queen. Buy her flowers every day, never think about cheating on her again, and be the best father to your kids. The man blinked, dazed. After delivering the command, Jacob knocked the man out with a precise tap to the head. Cogman, make the anonymous call to the sheriff. Tell him there's a foul smell coming from this house. Cogman made the call, and the two of them finally left the scene. Outside, Jacob looked at Styles. By the way, how did you guys get here so fast? Actually, we were already here before you texted us. Stiles explained. After you told me you were going after Sean and his family, I found their address and drove over. Melissa insisted on coming with us when I went to pick up Scott. I see, Jacob said. He then walked over to Melissa. I'm sorry if I lost my temper in there. Melissa touched his cheek gently. It's okay, kid. I'm sorry, too. I didn't realize how heavy a burden you're carrying. No teenager should have to deal with things like this. Jacob smiled faintly. All right, we should leave before the cops arrive. Good night. He kissed her cheek and started walking toward Allison and Lydia. Melissa smiled. Good night. Good night, Scott added. Jacob ignored him, waving only at Melissa. Good night, Melissa. See you soon. Scott growled, his eyes flashing yellow. Allison, Lydia, keep him away from my mom. He took Melissa's hand and started pulling her toward Stiles's jeep. Let's go, Mom. They got in, and he glared at Stiles, who was laughing. Scott growled. Stiles. Stiles said. Hey, don't growl at me, I didn't do anything. You go growl at Jacob. He is right over there. Melissa shook her head with a smile and said. Just drive, Stiles. Stiles said nothing more. He drove away, a smile still playing on his lips. Jacob, who was laughing and waving at Melissa, was interrupted by two sets of hands pinching him from both sides. Ouch! He exclaimed, though he felt no pain. He stepped away from Allison and Lydia. I'm riding with Kate. No, you are not. Allison said firmly. I don't want you alone with Kate. Cogman will be with us. I said no. Allison repeated, her tone leaving no room for argument. You are getting in my dad's car and explaining to me and Lydia what's going on between you and Scott's mom. Jacob sighed. I'm 16. There is nothing going on between me and Melissa. Now, can we just skip the usual routine where you two act angry and finally get to what you really want? Lydia smiled sweetly and took his arm. Allison and I were planning to go shopping tomorrow. You're going with us. Jacob groaned. Come on, anything but that. Allison seized his other arm. Then maybe we should talk about Malia. We never actually talked about her. We don't need to talk about Malia. Jacob said quickly. How about we skip school tomorrow and go shopping the whole day? Lydia shook her head. We are not skipping school. But you are paying for everything. Jacob complained. Didn't I give you money? That's my money. Lydia said sweetly. I want to spend your money. From the driver's seat of his car, Chris called out. Get in. We need to go. They got into the car, while Cogman joined a visibly nervous Kate in hers. The two vehicles pulled away from the House of Horrors, heading back toward the Argent residence. Chapter 85. A town in shock. A few days had passed since Jacob dealt with the Wendigo family. The news of a cannibalistic family living in Beacon Hills, responsible for countless murders, had spread like wildfire, dominating headlines not just in town, but across the country and the world. Beacon Hills High had sent students home for the rest of the week. Parents were freaking out because Sean had been a student there, and journalists relentlessly harassed the students and anyone associated with the school for comments. It was Saturday morning. Jacob and the girls had finished breakfast and moved to the living room. Lydia turned on the TV, and they settled in to watch the news. Jacob, sitting in a recliner with Malia curled up and sleeping on his lap, stroked her fur absently. They're still talking about the Wendigos. Well, it's shocking news. Allison said. They found 30 bodies hanging in that basement. And they discovered a warehouse owned by the Walcotts filled with human bones. The news said the cops have identified more than 100 victims from them, and they're still discovering more. Guys, look, Lydia said, pointing at the screen. They're talking about what they found at the grandparents' house. A reporter was on screen, standing in front of a house in Sitka, Alaska. I'm reporting live from Sitka, in front of the home of the elderly cannibal couple, John Walcott and his wife, Judith, who were found dead in Beacon Hills 3 days ago. Police and the FBI have discovered a cold room in the basement here containing more than 20 human bodies. We've just received news that the couple also owned a farm where police found additional victims hanging, and even more human bones buried on the property. Excavations are currently underway. The anchor in the studio responded. Thank you, Nora. We'll check back with you later. The scene changed to show police in Chicago surrounding a farmhouse, with 2 body bags being carried out. The anchor continued. In a related development, Police in Chicago have just killed Frank Walcott and his wife, confirmed cannibals, after they refused to surrender. Human body parts were found in their refrigerator, and a cold room in their kitchen contained additional victims. Frank Walcott was the eldest son of John and Judith Walcott. Lydia and Allison watched in stunned silence. Even Jacob, who usually cracked jokes, was in no mood for humor. Damn bastards, he muttered darkly. How many people did they eat? I'm glad we killed them, Allison said. Now the entire Walcott family and anyone related to them is wanted not just here, but all over the world. You know what's worse? Lydia added. That's just one family of Wendigos. How many other Wendigo families are out there? How many cannibalistic creatures like them are hunting people? Don't go there, Lydia, Jacob said. Don't think about that stuff. We did our part and killed the Wendigos we knew about. That's all we can do. This case will wake the government up, and hopefully, they'll start hunting Wendigos all over the world. I hope so, Allison agreed. One Walcott family killed more than 130 people, and that's just the branch living here. I don't even want to think about how many the entire extended family has killed, or how many people are killed by Wendigos and other cannibalistic creatures every year. Lydia, turn the TV off, Jacob said. I don't want to see or think about Wendigos anymore. Malia opened her eyes and barked at Lydia, who was about to turn the TV off. Understanding, Lydia smiled and changed the channel to an animal documentary. Malia wagged her tail a few times in happiness before focusing intently on the screen. Cogman, having finished washing the breakfast dishes, entered and sat in an armchair, opening a book to read. Allison looked over at him. Cogman, did you do what I asked you to do yesterday? Yes, my lady, he replied without looking up from his book. I did some hacking and searched all night for any Wendigo I could find worldwide and sent the information to the relevant authorities and hunter networks. Allison said. That's good. Did you find any more Wendigos here in town? No, I did not find any in Beacon Hills. They are scattered here and there all over the states, but the highest concentration was in Alaska and Canada. Jacob said. Well, let the authorities and hunters handle them. Lydia and Allison began scrolling through their phones, and Cogman returned to his book. A quiet, heavy silence fell over the room. Jacob sighed and thought. System, sign in. Daily sign in successful. Rewards obtained. Cheesecake X10. Pearl jewelry sets for women X6. Each set includes a bracelet, necklace, and earrings. Hot Wheels 1970 models X5. Dodge Charger, Ford Mustang, Ford F100, Jeep CJ5, Heavy Chevy, Chevrolet Chevelle. Jacob read through the list. Cheesecake, that's nice, I guess. The jewelry is for the girls. Then he saw the last reward and his eyes lit up. Hot Wheels. Now that's a good reward. My hoarding instincts are tingling. He moved Malia from his lap to the recliner and sat down at the table. He retrieved the Hot Wheels cars from his pocket dimension and began inspecting them, handling each one with the reverence of a collector examining priceless treasure. Lydia and Allison, intrigued by his sudden focus, leaned closer. Each picked up a car to look at it. Lydia then tried to open the plastic case to take the car out. Jacob let out a horrified scream and snatched the car from her hand. Ah, what are you doing? Lydia blinked in confusion. I'm trying to take it out to look at it. No, you can't do that, he exclaimed, clutching the car protectively. If you take it out, it will lose its value. He then swiftly took the car from Allison's hand. Give me that. You girls are not allowed to touch my Hot Wheels. Seeing Lydia and Allison pout, he softened. He took 6 boxes from his pocket dimension and handed them over. Here, this is for you girls. Lydia took the boxes and opened one. Her eyes widened. Wow, pearls, how much did these cost? I didn't buy them, Jacob said. I found them in my pocket dimension this morning. Lydia turned to the Cogman. Cogman, see if you can find out how much this pearl jewelry is worth. Cogman took one set and scanned it meticulously. According to my observation and cross-referencing with online databases, these pearls are authentic. This particular set is made of South Sea pearls. Given their size, perfect shape, and the white gold setting, I would estimate its value to be at least $70,000. Really? Allison said, impressed. She handed him another box. What about this one? Jacob ignored them and went back to admiring his Hot Wheels, thinking. I should ask Cogman to make a display in the gaming room for my collection, and help me buy more Hot Wheels. No, I should do that myself. That's the fun part. Half an hour later, Lydia and Allison had split the pearl jewelry sets, each taking 3 and storing them safely in their spatial rings. Just then, a car pulled up in front of the mansion gate. Cogman, Jacob said. Go open the gate for Scott and Styles. Cogman went out, opened the gate, and Scott drove his new car, a white 2000 Mustang GT, into the driveway. He and Styles entered the mansion, with Cogman following after closing the gate. Styles and Scott sat down. Hey, Cogman, Styles began. Can you please get us something to eat? I spent the night at Scott's and we haven't had breakfast yet. Please. Cogman, who had just settled back into his armchair with his book, American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis, flipped a page and said flatly. We are out of food. Allison gave him a look. Cogman, be nice. Fine. Cogman relented, closing his book with a sigh. I'll make them something. As Cogman went to the kitchen, Styles asked. What is he reading, anyway? He picked up the book. Oh, he's reading American Psycho. I saw that movie, it was not bad. Lydia shuddered slightly. The book is filled with extreme graphic violence. I tried to read it, but it was really disturbing. Styles put the book back exactly where Cogman had left it. I guess that's why Cogman is reading it. Then, Styles noticed the Hot Wheels on the table. Oh, are you collecting Hot Wheels, Jacob? These 5 are my first. Jacob said proudly. I'm planning to start a collection. They kept talking, and soon Cogman returned with breakfast for Styles and Scott. Jacob, though he had already eaten, joined them at the table. After they finished, Jacob asked, how's your old man doing, Styles? Not good, Styles replied. These days he's barely getting any sleep with all the FBI and reporters in town. What he saw in that basement really got to him. He's even blaming himself for not catching those Wendigos sooner. Scott added, even my useless father is back in town. Lydia looked curious. What does your father do? He's an FBI agent. He lives in San Francisco. Styles turned to Scott, surprised. Raphael is back. Did you meet him? No, Scott said. He came to my house yesterday morning, but I didn't meet him. Jacob narrowed his eyes. He didn't spend the night, did he? Scott raised an eyebrow. No, my mom kicked him out. Jacob sighed in obvious relief. Good. I don't want him spending time with Melissa. The room went silent. Jacob suddenly came back to his senses and found Scott and the girls glaring at him, while Styles was smirking. He said, shit, did I say that out loud? Styles laughed. Yes, you did. Jacob quickly moved away from Allison, who had been sitting next to him. He went to the recliner, scooped up Malia, sat down, and placed her on his lap as a furry barrier. He then winked at Allison, who just snorted and looked away. Jacob, stay away from my mom. Scott warned. Then a sly smirk spread across his face. You know what? I think I'll just persuade her to forgive Dad and get back with him. I don't like him, but it's better him than you. Jacob's eyes narrowed. Do that, and I'll ask Kate to go after your stupid werewolf ass. And don't worry, I won't let her kill you. She'll just have fun with you. Just a heads up, she's a sexual predator and a dominatrix who likes minors. So she's going to have a really good time with you and might help you awaken some new traits, like turning you into a masochist. Scott looked at Allison for help. She just shrugged. Don't look at me. Kate would probably do much worse things to you than what Jay just said. Lydia smirked. Like she'll tie you up, and she'll be the male during sex. Scott's eyes widened in horror. He looked back at Jacob. Don't let that crazy bitch get near me. Styles howled with laughter. Scott, are you sure? I mean, it might be fun. You might enjoy it. Scott glared at his best friend. Screw you. If you think it's so fun, then go find Kate yourself. Jacob smiled, a mischievous glint in his eye. Scott, don't worry. Nothing will happen between me and Melissa, at least until I turn 18. And would it be so bad? I mean, I would make her stronger and protect her. Yes, it would be bad. Scott insisted. I don't want my mom to date my friend. You know, Jacob mused. The more you tell me to stay away from her, the more I want to get close. I don't know why, it's like she's the forbidden fruit. He trailed off, lost in his imagination, a distant look in his eyes. Like, you're the king, Melissa is the mother queen, and I'm the hot stable boy. Lydia's eyes lit up with interest. What kind of dirty book have you been reading? Because I'd like to borrow it. Styles raised his hand. Me too. I'd like to borrow that book, please. Jacob didn't answer them. He was completely lost in thought, smirking like an idiot. Earth to Jacob. Hello, Lydia called, waving her hand. Allison smiled wryly. The pervert is gone. Styles grinned and patted Scott's shoulder. He's probably already married your mom in his dream, become the king, and kicked you out of the palace. Shut up, Styles, Scott retorted. It's not like you don't have Erica to worry about. He might go after her, too. No, he won't, Styles said confidently. He was the one who told me to go after her. I don't think he's sick enough to ask me to date a girl he's interested in. In case you haven't noticed, he's very possessive. I saw him beat up 3 guys from the opposing school's soccer team last week just because they tried to hit on Lydia and Allison when they walked by. Allison looked surprised. He did what? I didn't know about that. Well, you girls were heading to class and passed by those poor bastards. Styles explained. They tried to talk to you. I didn't hear what mean thing Lydia said to them, but you two left laughing, leaving the guys stunned. Then Jacob followed them to the locker room and beat the shit out of them. One of them even peed himself. The best part, those guys didn't even know why Jacob was beating them. They were just begging him to stop without knowing what they did wrong. It was hilarious. Allison looked over at Jacob, about to say something, but she stopped. She saw that both Jacob and Malia had fallen fast asleep. She sighed softly. Sometimes I envy him. He can sleep whenever he wants. Scott smirked. Styles, wake him up. Are you stupid? Styles hissed, pointing at the sleeping pair. Look at him. He's smiling in his sleep. He's probably having a nice dream about Melissa. Do you want me to wake him up and get my ass beaten? No, thank you. You can wake him up yourself. I'm going to play games. Allison added. Take the plates back to the kitchen before you go. Cogman is lost in his book. He hasn't even looked up since he brought you guys breakfast. Styles pointed at Scott. You take them. With that, he quickly made his exit to the gaming room. Scott sighed in defeat, gathered the plates, and took them to the kitchen before following Styles. Left in the quiet living room, Allison and Lydia shared a smile and went back to scrolling through their phones. Chapter 86. Unwelcome Guests. It was Sunday afternoon. The Argents were in their living room, having just finished lunch, when a firm knock echoed from the front door. Chris walked over to the security monitor and saw an old man with a powerful build standing there, flanked by 2 others. The old man looked directly into the camera and said, Argent, open the door. We come in peace. Chris didn't respond. He moved silently to the garage, opened a specific case in his armory, and retrieved 3 rusted iron daggers and 3 small pouches. He then loaded 3 handguns with bullets that had rusted iron heads. Returning to the house, he handed 2 daggers, 2 guns, and 2 pouches to Victoria and Kate. Kate and Victoria quickly hid the daggers and pouches on their persons. Victoria's voice was tense. Which Bogatier family are we dealing with? The worst. Chris replied grimly. Kate's eyes narrowed. The Zimas. Chris gave a single, sharp nod. Yes. Prepare for the worst. He then went and opened the door, his expression stony as he looked at the old man. It's a long way from Poland, Bartek. Bartek offered a thin, humorless smile. You're rude, Chris. I'm a friend of your father, after all. I can be considered your elder. Shouldn't you at least invite me in? Sure, Chris said, his voice flat. Come on in. Bartek and the 2 men behind him entered. Chris led them to the living room, where he, Kate, and Victoria sat opposite them. Why are you here, old man? Chris demanded, skipping any further pleasantries. Bartek ignored the question and gestured to the man on his right, who was about Chris's age. This is my son, Peter. I'm sure you've heard of him. Nothing good, but I've heard the name. Chris acknowledged coldly. Bartek smiled and pointed to the young man on his left, who had a strong, athletic build. And this is my grandson, Anthony. He's 17, about the same age as your daughter. I heard from Gerard that she is a beauty. Perhaps we can let the kids get to know each other. Where is she? There is no need for my daughter to know a bastard from the Zima family. Chris stated, his voice dripping with contempt. If that's why you're here, then you can leave, old man. Anthony jumped up, angry. Watch your tongue, you weakling. Bartek sharply scolded his grandson. Shut up, Antony. They may be weakling humans, but they can still kill you. So, sit down and shut up. He turned his deceptive, kindly smile back to Chris. Don't mind him. He is still young and has much to learn. I don't like you or your family, Chris said, his patience gone. So tell me what brought you to this town, and then leave my house. Bartek's facade of friendliness finally dropped. We were passing by when we heard about the Wendigos in this town. We came to take a look. I saw the dead Wendigos in the morgue. 3 were shot, probably by you and your hunters. But 1 was definitely cut by magic. And there was an alpha Wendigo that was beaten to death. For something to kill an alpha Wendigo with brute force, it must be extremely powerful. Even the 3 of us together couldn't have done it. Chris remained impassive. And your point is? My point, Bartek's voice grew deeper, more threatening, is that you had the help of a powerful supernatural creature. I want to know where it is. So you can kill it? Chris asked. Yes. Bartek confirmed. All supernatural creatures must be killed, especially the strong ones. Kate sneered. Then why don't you kill yourselves first? Aren't bogatirs supernatural, too? Peter leaned forward. We are chosen humans, blessed with power. Our duty is to purge the filthy monsters that roam our world. Sure, Kate retorted sarcastically. Whatever helps you sleep at night, you freak. Peter shot to his feet, ready to lunge at Kate, but Chris was faster, his gun now aimed squarely at Peter's head. Get out of my house. Peter, calm down, Bartek ordered his son. He turned his cold gaze back to Chris. Don't forget that you are a hunter, Chris. I might be willing to look the other way and forgive you this once for working with a supernatural, but... Before Bartek could finish his threat, Victoria acted. In one swift motion, she flung the contents of the pouch Chris had given her, a cloud of fine, rusted iron dust that engulfed Peter's head. Caught completely off guard, Peter inhaled the dust. He began to choke violently, his body seizing up before collapsing to the floor. He was completely paralyzed, able only to cough and choke helplessly. Bartek and Antony tried to stand, but Chris and Kate aimed their guns at them. Don't move, Chris commanded, his voice cold. Or we'll blow your heads off. And believe me, you can't heal from that. Bartek glared, pure hatred in his eyes. You used rusted iron. Take your son and get lost. Chris said. And if you come near my family again, I will kill you. Kate smirked, enjoying their fury. If I were you, old man, I'd leave this town as soon as possible. The people you're looking for hate bastards like you more than anything. If they find out you're here, you won't leave this town alive. And death would be the least of your concerns. If the guy who killed that alpha Wendigo catches you, you'll experience something far worse than death. Believe me, he's a psychopath. Bartek slowly stood, his body trembling with suppressed rage. Antony, get your father. We're leaving. Antony, shooting them a venomous look, hauled his paralyzed, choking father off the floor and followed his grandfather out of the house. Chris followed them to the door, watching until their car sped away. He locked the door and returned to the living room, his expression grim. He sank into a chair. We need to warn the kids. Allison can handle herself, but Bartek is said to be as strong as an alpha. And they'll know she's supernatural the moment they see her. They can sense it. Victoria was already on her feet. Then let's go. Now. They got into their car and drove straight to Jacob's mansion. Cogman opened the gate for them and guided them to the living room. Inside, they found Allison snuggling with Malia on the couch watching TV, while Lydia sat nearby scrolling through her phone. Allison stood up and greeted her parents with kisses on their cheeks. She then looked at Kate and said, simply, Kate. Where's my kiss? Kate asked with a smirk. Allison ignored her and sat back down next to Malia. Cogman, could you make some tea and bring some snacks, please? Right away, my lady. Cogman replied before heading to the kitchen. The Argents sat down, and Chris got straight to the point. Where's Jacob? He's sleeping, Allison said. Do you need him for something? Yes, Chris said. Wake him up. Allison raised her voice toward the staircase. Jacob, wake up. My dad wants to talk to you. They waited, but there was no response. Allison shouted again. Jacob, I know you heard me. Come down or I'll come up and drag you down myself. A muffled shout came from upstairs. Allison, you're too loud. Believe it or not, I'll spank you in front of your parents. Allison blushed as Victoria raised an eyebrow. Soon, Jacob came downstairs, grumbling, and slumped into the recliner. Didn't you get enough sleep? Allison asked. And whose fault do you think that is, huh? Jacob retorted. You and Lydia woke up so early this morning and started training in the backyard. And if that wasn't loud enough, stupid Lydia started screaming. Hey, Lydia interjected. That wasn't my fault. She asked me to attack her with my sonic scream. Besides, when are you going to get enough sleep? You're like an old man. You sleep in class, you always have to take a nap in the afternoon. I mean, you're a supernatural creature. You can go days without sleep if you want. What do you know? Jacob shot back. I'm still in my growing stage. I need a lot of food and sleep. And you know what I am. My kind is known for laziness, too. Lydia said. Then use earplugs or something, and stop complaining whenever we make noise in the house. Jacob snorted. I'll deal with you girls later. Lydia winked at him. Do your worst. All right, that's enough, you two. Allison said, ending the bickering. Just then, Cogman returned with tea and snacks. Jacob sighed, took a sip of tea, and looked at Chris. What's up? The news about the dead Wendigos brought something bad to town. Chris said grimly. Allison leaned forward. What came to town? Hunters. Chris explained. But not normal hunters. They're supernatural humans called bogatirs. The ones who came here are 3 members of the Zima family, a hunter family from Poland. They're known for being extreme. They kill every supernatural creature they can find. They don't care if the creature is innocent or not. They even kill normal humans who help or are in a relationship with supernatural creatures. Jacob raised an eyebrow. And where did you meet these guys? They came to my house asking about the creature that helped me kill the Alpha Wendigo. Do you know where they are now? Jacob's voice was cold. They won't live past tonight. No, Chris said. I kicked them out. I don't know where they went, or how many of them are actually in Beacon Hills. I see. Jacob turned to his butler. Cogman, tell me what you know about Bogatyr. Cogman straightened. Bogatirs are supernatural hunters from Slavic mythology. They believe all supernatural life is a disease to be purged. They possess supernatural strength and speed, and can channel energy to defend or attack their enemies. They are immune to compulsion, and their eyes can identify supernatural creatures on sight. They may not know what the creature is, but they know it's not human. Their fanaticism is absolute, showing no mercy to the innocent or guilty. Their primary weakness is rusted iron, which acts on them like wolfsbane, burning their skin and crippling their powers. Lydia frowned. Aren't those idiots supernatural themselves? Why do they hate supernatural creatures so much? Who knows? Jacob shrugged. Cogman, you can track them and kill them all. With pleasure, sir, Cogman said, a dark gleam in his eye. He turned to Chris. Can you describe their appearance to me? I can do better, Chris said, pulling out his phone. I have a doorbell camera connected to this. He handed the phone over. Cogman took it, connected to the feed, and watched the video of the Zima's visit. He handed the phone back. Thank you. That's perfect. Finding them will be easy now. Cogman closed his eyes, connecting to the internet. Moments later, his eyes snapped open. Sir, I found them. They're at a hotel on a busy street downtown. I can't kill them there. You mean you don't want to kill them there? Jacob corrected him. Because you can't torture them properly. You are right, sir. Cogman admitted without shame. While I could torture them and keep them quiet, it wouldn't be as satisfying. I need to hear them scream. I want to tear their limbs and break their bow. Jacob cut him off. That's enough, you psycho. Just lure them to the woods. You'll need bait for that. I'll be the bait. Allison volunteered immediately. No, Jacob said. They know your parents, so they might know what you look like and choose not to follow you. Cogman, use Scott. Tell him and Styles what's going on. The 3 of you go to the hotel where these guys are staying. When the Bogatirs see Scott, they'll know he's supernatural. Lure them out to the woods. Cogman gave a sharp, eager nod. Then I'm leaving now, sir. Go, Jacob ordered. Bring them to the place where I killed those hunters a couple of weeks ago. I want to see how these guys fight. After Cogman left, Chris turned to Jacob, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. What kind of creature is your butler? When he took my phone, the thing started working on its own. Then he closed his eyes, and a moment later he said he'd found Bartek and his men. Jacob shook his head. Believe me, you don't want to know. That would just freak you out. Ignorance is a blessing sometimes. Victoria pressed the point. Why couldn't he be the bait for the Bogatyrs? Isn't he a supernatural creature? He is, Jacob said. But he's not like us. The Bogatyrs' sight might not identify him as supernatural. That's all I can tell you. Kate leaned forward. Then why didn't you or Lydia go as bait? Jacob said. I'm sure you know what Lydia is by now. Chris said. We didn't know at first, but after she predicted the death of the Warekoyote girl, we figured out she was a banshee. Jacob nodded. And as you know, banshees can step through mountain ash like normal humans. So, I don't know if the Bogatyrs can tell she's supernatural or not. And you? Victoria asked, turning her gaze to Jacob. I can hide what I am. He said simply. I can mask my energy and appear completely human. So, unless it's absolutely necessary, I don't want to expose myself in the middle of town, especially now, when it's filled with strangers and investigators for the Wendigo case. Who knows what kind of creatures I might end up drawing to me? I don't want that kind of attention. Allison, who had been listening quietly, changed the subject. Dad, how do you know the Zima family? I don't, not really. Chris confessed. They're Gerard's friends. But I know what those bastards do. They leave massacres in their wake. They don't even bother to hide the bodies. They just kill and leave them for the cops to find. Lydia's face showed her disgust. I'm starting to think all hunters are crazy, evil killers. I mean, we've never met a good one. No offense, Mr. Argent, but the Argent family has Kate and Gerard. To me, your family doesn't seem like a righteous hunter family. Chris sighed, a heavy weight in the sound. Every family has one or two crazy, evil members. I doubt you'd find an entire family that's purely good and righteous, even if you searched the whole world. Lydia crossed her arms. We don't have an evil member in our family. Kate smirked. What about Cogman? Lydia didn't hesitate. He's a crazy psychopath, but he's not evil. Kate just shrugged. If you say so. Chapter 87. The bait is taken. Cogman met with Styles and Scott and told them about the Bogatyrs. Styles said, Are you telling me that some hunters with supernatural powers are here in town? Cogman said, Weren't you listening to what I just said, you imbecile? Styles scratched the back of his head and said, I heard. It's just hard to believe, that's all. Cogman looked at Scott and said, Anyway, we need to deal with them tonight. If we don't, they will kill every supernatural being, and any human connected to them, they can find in Beacon Hills. Scott said, And what do you want from us? I won't kill. Cogman said, If they find out that you are a werewolf, they will kill not just you, but your mother too. Scott said, Still, I will not kill. Cogman said, You are too naive. But don't worry, I don't want you to kill. I just want you to be the bait so we can lure them to the woods. Leave the rest to me and Sir, if he decides to have fun too. Styles said, Is killing fun to you guys? Cogman said, It is certainly fun to me, at least. As for Sir and my ladies, I don't know. They are not cowards like you two wimps. They will kill if necessary. And I think Sir enjoys killing too, even if he says he doesn't. Styles said, Wait, did Lydia and Allison kill people too? Cogman said, Ask them yourself. Now, are you two idiots in or not? Scott, despite his aversion to violence, nodded and said, I'm in. What should I do? Cogman said, Nothing much. Just come with me and show yourself in front of them, and they will probably follow us. Now, let's go. The three of them drove to the hotel where the Bogatyrs were staying and waited outside until dusk, when dinner time approached. They followed the Bogatyrs as they left the hotel to dine at a nearby restaurant. Cogman, Scott, and Styles sat at a table not far from them. The moment the Bogatyrs laid eyes on Scott, they knew. Boys, Bartek said under his breath, a predatory smile touching his lips. It looks like we have a job tonight. Although it's just a weak Wilkolik. Wilkolik is polish for werewolf. Peter nodded slowly. It's better than nothing. But, Father, the old man with the Wilkolik feels off. Dangerous, even. Bartek didn't look directly at Cogman's table. I know. Even the other boy isn't normal. He then turned to another member of the Zima family at their table and spoke in Polish. Łukasz, go tell the others to get ready. Bring the weapons and wait outside the restaurant. Cogman, who understood every word, didn't react. He let Scott and Styles finish their meals. After about 20 minutes, the three of them left, deliberately not taking their car and instead walking toward the Beacon Hills Preserve. As planned, the Zima hunters followed at a distance. Cogman sent a quick text to Jacob. Sir, they took the bait. We are now heading to the forest. As they neared the edge of the preserve, Peter grew uneasy. He whispered in Polish. Father, this doesn't feel right. It's as if they are leading us into the woods. Let's kill them here before they enter the tree line. Bartek shook his head, replying in Polish. It doesn't matter if it is a trap. There are 7 of us. We can kill them with ease. We cannot attack them here. This town is filled with all kinds of people right now. We shouldn't draw attention to ourselves. Besides, look at those idiots. Peter looked ahead. Stiles and Scott were joking and laughing loudly, while Cogman was humming a cheerful tune with a serene smile on his face. Do you think they have even realized we are following them? Bartek finished. Peter sighed, his suspicion easing. They look clueless, for sure. Maybe I am just overthinking it. Jacob's mansion. Jacob read Cogman's text and stood up. All right, let's go. Cogman says they took the bait. I want to fight one of them. Allison declared. Kate smirked. Bartek said he wanted to introduce you to his grandson, since you two are the same age. Before Allison could retort, Jacob's eyes glowed golden. Oh, he's eyeing my Allison. Then it's decided. This Bartek guy is mine. An evil smile spread across his face. He likes to hunt monsters, right? I'll show him how much of a monster I am. Allison mirrored his predatory grin. Then I'll have a playdate with that grandson of his. Lydia shook her head with a smile and said, poor bastards. The worst crime you can commit against Jacob is to hit on one of us. Kate, do you hate that Bartek guy that much? I thought you would like the Zima family since you are evil like them. Kate said, I'm not like them. As for Bartek, I hate him, his family, and all the other Bogatyrs. They call normal human hunters like us weaklings, and they despise and look down on us. Jacob said, all right, time to go. As they moved to leave the mansion, Malia trotted up behind them. Jacob looked down at her. Do you want to come with us? She nodded her head firmly. Then stay next to Lydia. Jacob instructed. With that, they left for the preserve. As they were heading toward the woods, Jacob thought, I haven't signed in today. System, sign in. Daily sign in successful. Rewards obtained. Bottle of water X30. 60-meter nylon climbing rope. Charcoal barrel grill. Jacob checked the rewards and thought. Well, it's better than nothing. The grill is good, though, we don't have one. I'll ask Cogman to smoke some brisket for us when I get back. Beacon Hills Preserve. As they went deeper into the woods, Cogman, with his enhanced hearing, picked up Bartek ordering his hunters in Polish to attack. He turned to Scott and Stiles. They are about to attack. Let's run. We haven't reached the place where we are supposed to meet Sir yet. With that, the 3 of them broke into a sprint. Behind them, Bartek said. They've discovered us. Chase them. Don't let them escape. Bartek and his hunters gave chase. At first, the 2 groups maintained their distance, but seeing they weren't closing the gap, the Bogatyrs activated their power. A faint, white energy shimmered around their bodies, and their speed increased dramatically. Scott glanced over his shoulder. Shit, they're gaining on us. Worry not. Cogman replied calmly. We are almost there. They ran for another 5 minutes before Cogman finally skidded to a halt. All right, we can stop now. The 3 of them turned to face their pursuers. Bartek and his group stopped a few meters away, their faces twisted with contempt. Are you done running, freaks? Bartek taunted. Cogman smirked. Who said we were running? A flicker of unease crossed Bartek's face. They're waiting for someone. Let's kill them before whoever it is arrives. Attack. One of the hunters lunged forward. In response, Cogman's palm slid open, and a small cannon barrel emerged. It fired a blast of blue energy straight into the hunter's chest, sending him flying backward. However, the hunter performed a mid-air flip and landed on his feet, his own white energy having blocked the worst of the blast. The hunter stared at Cogman in shock. What are you? Peter demanded. Cogman gave a slight bow. Just a butler. Whoa, that was cool. Stiles exclaimed. I didn't know you could do that. I had to make some modifications to my body. Cogman explained conversationally. I realized my smaller form wasn't strong enough, and my full form, while powerful, is too slow. So, I enhanced my current form and added some new, attacking methods. Recovering from their surprise, Bartek and his hunters unsheathed their swords. None carried guns. Each wielded a blade now coated in their shimmering white energy. Styles eyed the glowing swords nervously. Okay, that looks dangerous. Where is Jacob? And, Cogman, do you have a sword? In fact, I do. Cogman reached into his trouser pocket and pulled out a simple metal hilt. Good thing I brought it with me. It's a perfect opportunity for a field test. He clicked a button on the base of the hilt, and a brilliant, humming blade of solid blue energy erupted from it. Styles screamed in excitement, shaking Scott's arm. Did you see that? It's a lightsaber. He ran over to Cogman. Can I borrow it, please? After the fight, of course. That's a no, Cogman said firmly. It is too dangerous. He then shoved Styles back behind him. Now stay away. They are attacking. Just as he pushed Styles to safety, two hunters closed in on him simultaneously. Cogman met one's energy-coated sword with his own energy blade, blocking the slash. At the same time, he aimed his other palm at the second hunter and fired an energy blast, forcing the man to divert his energy to defend and stumble back. Cogman exerted more force through his blade, shoving the first hunter backward. Then, in a move no one expected, he opened his mouth. A red laser beam shot out, aimed directly at the hunter. The hunter tried to block the laser with his energized sword, but his white energy couldn't dissipate the intense heat completely. The metal of the sword began to glow red-hot. The hunter was forced to throw himself into a desperate roll to evade the beam. The second hunter seized the opening and attacked again. Cogman sidestepped the sword thrust and drove his energy blade into the man's gut, and was about to cut him in half. But a third hunter intervened, forcing Cogman to disengage and leap back. Cogman parried the new attacker's blade with his own. Then before the hunter could react, his free hand shot out and clamped onto the man's face. Got you, Cogman said pleasantly. He released a point-blank energy blast from his palm directly into the hunter's face. The man hadn't protected his head with his energy. The result was instantaneous and gruesome. His skin vaporized, revealing the scorched skull beneath. His eyes, nose, and lips were utterly gone. The hunter was still alive, but only barely, emitting a silent, agonized scream. With cold efficiency, Cogman dropped the twitching body to the ground and cleanly severed the head from the torso with his energy sword. The hunter who had been stabbed in the stomach earlier had backed away, his wound almost fully healed. He now stared at Cogman with a mixture of rage and fear. Bartek's voice cut through the tension. Wukash, Robert, Andre. Attack him together. The three hunters moved as one, converging on Cogman. But just as they closed in, two sharp, whistling arrows of condensed wind shot from the darkness, aimed at two of the attackers. The hunters reacted with supernatural speed, twisting to deflect the projectiles with their energy-coated blades. But the wind arrows were impossibly strong, spinning with violent force. The impact sent both men flying backward like ragdolls. They crashed through several trees and then rolled on the ground for a few meters before they stopped. Cogman, now facing only the third hunter, parried a sword slash with his energy blade. In the same fluid motion, he raised his free hand, index finger extended, and fired several precise laser shots. Small, smoldering holes appeared in the hunter's chest and throat. The man dropped to his knees, coughing up blood. Cogman deactivated his energy blade and returned the hilt to his pocket. He then grabbed the kneeling hunter by the hair and began driving his knee into the man's face. Once. Twice. He didn't stop. The sound of crunching bone and cartilage filled the clearing. He broke the man's nose and shattered all his teeth before letting him collapse. He then straddled the hunter's chest and continued punching his face. The blows landed with sickening wet thuds until, finally, the man's skull could take no more and exploded. Cogman stood up, sighing in deep satisfaction. Now that was satisfying. Scott and Styles watched in horror, instinctively taking several steps backward. Bartek, however, paid no mind to his dead man. He, his son Peter, and his grandson Antony were entirely focused on the tree line from where the wind arrows had originated. Soon, Jacob and his group emerged from the darkness into the clearing. Bartek and his son's eyes immediately scanned the newcomers, lingering on Allison, Lydia, and Malia. Then they ignored Malia, their gazes locking with predatory interest on Lydia and Allison. Allison stepped forward to stand beside Cogman, who was now calmly straightening his suit and wiping blood from his face. Her eyes glowed with a vibrant green light, and a swirling vortex of green wind energy coiled around one of her hands. Jacob walked over to Styles and Scott. You guys all right? You don't look too good. Styles stammered. Well, we just saw your butler make a man's head explode. Then you might want to close your eyes or something. Jacob advised casually. Because we're about to kill the rest of them. Kate walked over to Scott. Hey, handsome. Scott panicked, scrambling to hide behind Jacob. Jacob, please keep her away from me. Jacob laughed. Kate raised an eyebrow. Why are you scared of me, kid? I was just being friendly. They told me you're a sexual predator who likes minors. Scott blurted out. Kate rolled her eyes in Jacob's direction. Stop spreading nasty rumors about me. I'm not that bad. She then winked at Scott. But I wouldn't mind having some fun with you, handsome. I wouldn't tell if you don't. Scott looked horrified. Damn, she really is a predator. Kate just smirked and turned her gaze to Styles. Styles panicked. Don't look at me. He then ran to stand behind Lydia, pleading. Lydia, please protect me. Bartek ignored the side drama, his disappointed glare fixed on Chris. Chris, I didn't expect you to help these freaks against fellow hunters. Gerard will be so disappointed in you when he hears about this. But don't worry, I will help Gerard clean his house after I deal with these monsters. I don't care what Gerard thinks of me. Chris stated coldly. I've recently learned he is not the man I thought he was. And don't worry about me, old man. You should worry about yourself. After all, you are about to die. Kate chimed in. By the way, old man. You said you wanted your grandson to meet our little princess. She gestured to Allison. Well, she's right in front of you. And she's very eager to meet him, too. Bartek looked at Allison with utter disgust. Your little girl is a monster, and you let her live. I'm truly disappointed in you, Chris. But I'll do what you couldn't. I'll kill her, and then I'll kill you. Jacob didn't say a word. He simply started walking toward Bartek. Lydia smirked. That old geezer is screwed. Styles nodded. Yeah, he is. I should probably look away, but I really want to see what Jacob is going to do to him. Bartek focused all his attention on the approaching teenager. Yet, no matter how hard he stared, Jacob appeared to be nothing more than an ordinary human. There was no shimmer of energy, no telltale sign of the supernatural. But a deep, primal unease settled in Bartek's gut, blooming into genuine fear as he met Jacob's cold, predatory gaze. The two hunters sent flying by Allison's wind arrows staggered to their feet, blood trickling from their mouths. One stumbled back to stand by Bartek, but the other was enraged. He spat blood, his eyes locking onto Allison with pure hatred, and charged at her with superhuman speed. Seeing Jacob directly in his path, the hunter dismissed him as a mere human. He swung his sword in a casual, dismissive slash, intending to cut the boy down without breaking stride and continue toward his real target. Jacob's hand shot out, catching the man's wrist in an unbreakable grip. His eyes never left Bartek. With a sickening crunch, he shattered the hunter's arm, eliciting a scream of agony. Then, still looking at Bartek, Jacob clamped his other hand over the man's face. Fire erupted from his palm, instantly incinerating the hunter's head to ash. The headless body crumpled to the ground. The moment Jacob used his fire, the veil was lifted. Bartek, Peter, Anthony, and the other hunter, finally saw the truth, the immense, terrifying energy swirling within Jacob's body. It was a power that made their own feel insignificant. Jacob grinned, a vicious, predatory expression. He unleashed his full dragon aura. A shockwave of pure, ancient power erupted from him, focused solely on the Zima family. While Allison and the others felt the shockwave, they were spared the crushing psychological weight. For Bartek and his kin, it was like staring into the eyes of an ancient beast. Bartek bit his tongue hard, using the pain to fight the paralyzing fear. In a desperate, cowardly move, he grabbed the hunter standing beside him and shoved the man directly at Jacob. Peter, Anthony, run, he screamed. With only 4 of us left, we cannot face such a monster. Cogman appeared in front of Jacob, catching the flung hunter by the neck. With a brutal, efficient motion, he tore out his windpipe, tossing the bloody tissue aside. Blood fountained from the grievous wound. As the hunter gurgled, still alive due to his supernatural resilience, Cogman snatched the man's fallen sword and decapitated him in one clean stroke. Lydia teleported directly into the path of the fleeing Bartek and his sons. And where do you think you're going, you bastards? She asked sweetly. Then, she opened her mouth and unleashed a devastating sonic scream, blasting the three of them off their feet and sending them flying backward toward Jacob before teleporting back to Malia's side. Jacob caught Bartek by the neck midair, and Cogman caught Peter. Allison, seeing Antony hurtling through the air toward her, simply waved her hand. A powerful gust of wind caught him and sent him soaring high into the sky. She drew the katana Shisui from her spatial ring in a fluid motion. As Antony began his helpless descent, she swung the blade. A massive, crescent-shaped slash of emerald wind shot toward him. Antony, just regaining his senses from Lydia's scream, saw the attack coming. He poured all his energy into his sword and body, forming a desperate shield. But his power was no match for Allison's elemental attack. The wind slash sliced cleanly through his energized blade, then through his torso, cutting him in two at the chest. He was dead before his remains hit the forest floor. Peter, held in Cogman's grip, witnessed his son's death. Antony, no, he screamed, his voice cracking with agony. Cogman punched him square in the mouth. Shut it. Peter spat out fragments of teeth, glaring at Cogman with hatred. Cogman smiled pleasantly. Let's see how long you can keep that look. Before Peter could use his energy, Cogman delivered a savage kick to his balls, making the man howl in pain. Your pained screams are music to my ears. Cogman said. He dropped Peter to the ground and proceeded to stomp on his crotch repeatedly until his pelvis shattered with an audible crack. Finally, he activated his energy sword and stabbed the broken man over and over until all movement ceased. Chris, Scott, and Styles winced, their hands instinctively moving to protect their crotches. That's got to hurt, Styles muttered, his face pale. Scott shivered. Cogman is vicious. Yeah, Chris agreed. That butler is really a psychopath. Bartek, held immobile by Jacob's grip on his neck, had seen his grandson killed and heard his son's tortured end. Rage gave him a final burst of strength, and he tried to flare his energy to break free. Jacob didn't even flinch. A powerful current of electricity surged from his hand into Bartek's body, making the old hunter convulse violently and severing his connection to his power. Jacob leaned close, his voice a low, deadly whisper. First, I heard you wanted to set up a date between my wife and your grandson. And if that wasn't enough, you just said you were going to kill her because she's a monster. Now, I know you could never actually hurt her. She's more than capable, and I would never let anyone touch her, but still. Hearing you say that pissed me off. I was just planning to beat you to a pulp before killing you. Steam and smoke began to curl from Jacob's lips. A trickle of glowing, molten magma dripped from the corner of his mouth. But now I think I'll just burn that tongue of yours. Jacob forced Bartek to his knees, gripping his jaw. Another jolt of electricity made the old hunter's mouth snap open in a silent scream. Jacob leaned in, opened his own mouth, and a stream of magma poured out, directly into Bartek's throat. The magma scorched his mouth, seared his esophagus, and flooded into his chest, burning him alive from the inside. He couldn't even scream. Jacob released him, and Bartek collapsed, clawing futilely at his own melting throat and chest, only succeeding in burning his hands to the bone. He died in utter agony as the magma consumed his neck, severing his head from his body in a final, gruesome display. Chapter 88. Aftermath and an unexpected meeting. After watching Bartek die, Jacob turned to face Allison and the others. His mouth still dripped with glowing magma. He winked at Kate, who immediately took several steps back and hid behind Victoria. He then looked at Styles and Scott. So, he said casually, have you ever seen a man drink magma before? Scott, whose eyes were wide and fixed on Bartek's still smoldering body, turned away and vomited violently. Styles, on the other hand, ran up to Jacob, his face alight with excitement. That was awesome. Can you use magma? Jacob raised an eyebrow. Didn't you just see me use it? Yes. And you were so cool. And awesome. And handsome. And strong. Jacob smiled, and patted Styles on the shoulder. Yes, I am the most handsome man in the world. Styles nodded vigorously. Yes, you are the most handsome man alive. Jacob laughed and gave Styles a hard pat on the back. Go on, praise me more. Styles's mouth twitched. Then, a mischievous glint appeared in his eyes, and he switched to a high-pitched, girly voice. You are so hot. If I was a girl, I would. Jacob smacked him on the back of the head. Stop. I told you to never use that voice again when talking to me. Styles laughed, but a moment later, a kick sent him crashing to the ground. He looked back to see Lydia glaring down at him, and he said, "What was that for?" "Stay away from Jay," Lydia commanded. "It's bad enough I have to share him with other girls. I don't want to share him with boys, too." Styles stood up, dusting himself off. "I was just joking. I'm straight," Lydia said. "If you say so." Jacob crossed his arms. "Usually when I start talking about how good-looking I am, you and Scott either ignore me or try to attack me and get your asses kicked. So, tell me what you really want, Styles." Styles grinned sheepishly. "I want you to tell Cogman to let me borrow his lightsaber. Please." "Oh, so that's what you want, huh?" Jacob said. "Then ask him yourself." "I did, but he said no." "Please, it's my childhood dream to play with a lightsaber." Jacob looked at Cogman. "It's too dangerous, sir," Cogman stated. "And I don't like Styles. Every time I see him, I feel like beating him. But, if he lets me break a few of his bones, I might consider letting him borrow it." Jacob smiled. "You heard him, Styles." Styles looked pleadingly at Cogman. "Come on, man. Just let me borrow it for a few minutes. I told you what you need to do if you really want my sword." Cogman replied flatly. Styles sighed in deep disappointment, his shoulders slumping. Seeing this, Jacob smiled and pulled a lightsaber hilt from his pocket dimension. "All right, stop looking like your dog just died. Here." He tossed it to Styles. "It's a defective one. It can only cut walls and rocks, but it's still a lightsaber." Styles caught it happily. "Wait, if it can cut walls and rocks, why can't it cut other things?" "It has a magical restriction on it," Jacob explained. Styles's eyes shone. "When should I return it to you?" "Whenever you want." Styles ignited the blue energy blade and shouted in excitement. "Yes." He was about to run over to Scott but stopped and turned back to Jacob. "You wouldn't happen to have a Jedi robe that I can borrow, would you?" Jacob kicked him lightly. "Get lost." Styles laughed and ran to Scott and began enthusiastically demonstrating his new toy by slicing nearby rocks like a maniac. Jacob smiled, then waved a hand, summoning flames that quickly consumed all the bodies of the hunters, leaving no trace. He turned to Cogman. "Gather their swords." Cogman collected the Bowgator's swords and handed them to Jacob, who stored them in his pocket dimension. "Did you make sure no one will trace this back to you when they realize these bastards have disappeared?" Jacob asked. "Yes, sir. I took care of it." Cogman confirmed. "Good. I don't care if the rest of the Zima family comes after you, you'll be fine. But I don't want them going after Styles and Scott." Scott smiled, touched that Jacob seemed worried about him. But then he heard Jacob continue. "I don't really care about those two idiots, but Melissa would be in danger, and I don't want that." "Damn it," Scott muttered, his smile vanishing. Jacob grinned. "All right, let's get out of here." The group began walking back toward Jacob's mansion. As they walked, Styles fell into step beside Allison. "Hey, Allison, you didn't tell us you had supernatural powers." "Didn't I?" she replied innocently. "I thought you already knew." "No, I didn't. Your eyes were glowing green. So, what are you?" "A fairy," Allison said. "I'm a wind fairy." Styles blinked. "What? Can you, like, become tiny?" "Tiny? No, Styles," she said with a laugh. "I'm a real fairy, not like the ones from Disney." Cogman, walking just behind them, chimed in with a scholarly tone. "The fair folk, or Siddhi, are human-sized. The small, cute version you're referring to is a literary invention that became popular starting in the Victorian era." They continued walking and talking, and just as they were about to exit the woods, they ran into a new group. Peter, Derek, and two other men in their 40s, and both of them were werewolves. Peter's gaze swept over Jacob's group, but his eyes locked onto Kate, glowing a furious red. He stared at her for a long, tense moment before turning his attention to Jacob. "Why is someone like you walking and laughing with hunters?" he demanded, his voice a low growl. Jacob raised a brow, then offered a deceptively mild smile. "They're my in-laws. And, Peter." Peter saw that smile and instinctively took a step back. "What? Are you telling me who I should and shouldn't talk to?" Jacob asked, his tone light but carrying an unmistakable edge. No, you can talk to WHOEV. No, you can do whatever you want. That's not what I meant. I can't tell you what to do. I'm sorry." Peter backtracked, his bravado evaporating. I just saw Kate Argent, and anger clouded my mind. Please understand, she killed my family and almost killed me, too. One of the unfamiliar werewolves beside Peter scoffed. Peter, why are you scared of a kid? From his scent, I can tell he's just a human. Is there an alpha protecting him or something? We can just kill him and everyone with him and get rid of the bodies. That way, no one will know we were the ones who did it. Peter looked at the man with sheer terror. Shut up. The man raised a brow, confused by his alpha's fear. Why are you scared? I can smell your fear. Where is the alpha who beat me and forced me to join his pack? I can see they have a werewolf and a werecoyote with them. But we have an alpha and 3 betas on our side. We can take them even if they have hunters with them. Then, the man's eyes glowed blue as he ogled Allison, Lydia, and Kate. But we won't kill those 3. I want to. Before he could finish his vile suggestion, Peter spun and punched him with all his alpha strength, sending the beta crashing to the ground. Are you trying to get us all killed? Peter roared. He then turned back to Jacob. I have nothing to do with this bastard. Styles piped up. But he just said he's your beta. He was. Peter stated firmly. I just kicked him out of my pack. Jacob smiled. Is that so? Yes, yes, Peter said quickly. He is all yours. I can even kill him for you if you want. Jacob ignored the offer. Where did you find him, anyway? He was just passing through town, and I asked him to join my pack. Peter explained. The disowned beta got up from the ground, now fully shifted into his werewolf form. Fur bristled on his cheeks, and his claws were extended. He growled at Peter but knew he couldn't beat an alpha. Instead, he turned his rage on Jacob and charged. Dumbass. Derek muttered, shaking his head with a sigh. Jacob didn't even move from his spot. He simply slapped the charging werewolf across the face with enough force to knock several fangs out of his mouth and send him flying sideways. Scott, Styles, Jacob said casually. Which one of you wants to fight him? I'll fight. I'll fight. Styles shouted. But I won't kill him. He handed the lightsaber to Scott. Hold this, and watch the debut of Super Styles. The werewolf stood up, his fangs already regrown. It seemed the humiliation had pushed him over the edge into a mindless fury. He ignored everyone else and charged Jacob again. This time, Styles moved with his own supernatural speed, intercepting him with a powerful kick to the stomach that made the werewolf howl in pain. Enraged, the werewolf swiped at Styles with his claws. Styles dodged and countered with a sharp punch to the nose, breaking it with a sickening crunch. Ah, that hurts, Styles yelped, shaking his hand. The werewolf let out a feral roar and tried to bite him. Styles evaded to the side, and the creature pursued him relentlessly. Styles ran, dodging behind trees. Damn, he looks pissed. He began toying with the out-of-control beta, peeking out from behind a tree and landing a solid punch to his face before ducking back into cover. The furious werewolf roared and slammed a fist into the tree, splintering it in half. Oops, Styles muttered, then sprinted toward another tree with the werewolf hot on his heels. This time, he didn't hide behind it. He ran straight up the trunk, intending to perform a backflip. He managed the flip, and the werewolf crashed into the tree below him. But Styles had misjudged his strength. Instead of one flip, he spun through 3 rotations and slammed face-first into the dirt. The werewolf turned, grabbed Styles by the leg, and lifted him, growling as drool dripped onto Styles's jeans. Seeing the slavering jaws about to clamp down on his leg, Styles panicked. He kicked out wildly, his heel connecting solidly with the werewolf's mouth. The grip loosened, and Styles wrenched himself free, scrambling to his feet. Jacob and the others watched the fight with a mixture of confusion and amusement. Lydia smiled. Is this a fight or a comedy show? Victoria said. Is that boy, Styles, a werewolf too? No, he's not, Allison explained. He drank a magical strengthening potion. Jacob shouted. Styles, you either fight seriously, or I'm taking the lightsaber back. Styles, who was still dodging swipes from the enraged werewolf, yelled back. Please don't take it back. I'll fight seriously. He then turned his full attention to the beta. All right, Mutt, he said, his voice losing all its playful edge. Playtime's over. He stopped running. As the werewolf lunged, Styles didn't dodge. He met the charge head-on, catching the werewolf by his wrists. He used the beta's own momentum to spin and hurl him into a thick oak tree. The impact shook the trunk. The werewolf staggered up, disoriented. Styles didn't give him a chance to recover. He closed the distance in a blur, delivering a rapid series of jabs to his ribs. When the werewolf swiped at him, he ducked under the claws, came up inside his guard, and drove an uppercut into his jaw that snapped his head back. The werewolf stumbled, his movements becoming sluggish. Styles pressed his advantage. He swept the werewolf's legs out from under him, and as he fell, he landed a punch with all his strength to his temple. The werewolf hit the ground hard and stopped moving. Styles smiled, thought he had won, and turned triumphantly toward Jacob and the others. But then he heard a low growl from behind him. He spun around to see the werewolf already back on his feet, swiping his claws at him. Styles didn't have time to dodge and was slashed across the chest. The claws tore through his hoodie and left a deep, bleeding gash. Scott panicked and started walking forward to help his friend, but Jacob stopped him with a hand on his chest. "Don't help him. Let him finish this fight on his own." "But," Scott protested. Jacob cut him off. "Don't worry too much. That werewolf has lost control. He might look dangerous, but he's just a mindless beast now. Styles just needs to use his brain and not let his guard down. He can win this easily." Styles touched the wound on his chest, which was already beginning to heal, and hissed in pain. "That hurt." He glared at the werewolf. "You should have stayed down." The werewolf roared and lunged again. This time, Styles was ready. He dodged to the side and delivered a powerful kick to his knee, sending him crashing to the ground. With an evil smile, he began kicking the downed beta repeatedly with all his strength, finally hearing a sickening crunch as one of the werewolf's arms broke. The shock of the pain seemed to jolt the werewolf back to his senses. The mindless rage faded from his eyes, replaced by fear. He began begging Styles to stop. Styles ignored his pleas. He grabbed both of his legs and started slamming him from side to side against the hard ground like a ragdoll. After several brutal impacts, he dropped the dazed beta, straddled his chest, and began punching him hard in the face. He didn't stop until the werewolf shifted back into his bloody, bruised human form, barely conscious. Only then did Styles stand up, breathing heavily. He walked back to Jacob and the others, a triumphant look on his face. "So, what do you guys think of Super Styles?" Jacob smiled. "I think you're just one bad day away from having your own supervillain origin story." Styles smiled. "A supervillain sounds like fun, but not with you around. I don't want to die by drinking magma." Jacob threw an arm around Styles's shoulder. "How about we both become villains? We'll take over the world and steal all the beautiful women. I'll even let you have a few. Let's say, 10. No, 5. Actually, 2. 2 is the most I can give you." Styles raised an eyebrow. "All the beauties in the world, and you'll only give me 2. How generous of you." Jacob heard a loud, synchronized, ahem. From his side, he looked over to see Lydia and Allison glaring at him. He immediately let go of Styles and scratched the back of his head nervously. "Don't worry, girls. I'll make you 2 the queens of the world. Those other women will just be our servants." Lydia's expression shifted to a thoughtful smile. "That sounds interesting. I'm in." Allison rolled her eyes. "Just deal with that werewolf, you pervert. And let's go back home." Jacob smiled and turned back to the unconscious werewolf, raising a hand to incinerate him. But Cogman darted past him. "Wait, sir." The butler stood over the helpless man, activated his energy sword, and began stabbing the body repeatedly until all life was gone. He then walked back to Jacob, a look of profound satisfaction on his face. "Now you can burn the body." Jacob shook his head with a smile, waved his hand, and sent a jet of flame to consume the corpse, turning it to ash in moments. He then turned his gaze to Peter, who flinched under the attention. Jacob ignored him and looked at Peter's remaining new beta. "You, show me your eyes." The man, wisely, didn't argue. He let his eyes glow a bright yellow. "I don't know where you came from," Jacob said, "but if you kill innocent people in this town, you'll have only yourself to blame." He then looked at Derek. "You should stop hanging out with Peter. He's going to get you killed. See you around." With that final warning, he started walking away, his group falling into step behind him. Kate looked at Peter with a vicious smile and opened her mouth to taunt him, but Allison grabbed her arm. "Don't say a word, Kate. You might anger Jacob, and he could decide to let you fight Peter right here, right now. We both know you wouldn't survive that." Kate turned to her niece, a smirk playing on her lips. So, you still care about me, princess? Allison ignored her, let go of her arm, and walked ahead to walk beside Lydia. Kate's smirk widened as she followed. How about we go shopping tomorrow? My treat. Allison didn't even look back. No, thank you. Peter watched Jacob and his group leave. Only when they had completely disappeared into the darkness did he finally let out a shaky sigh of relief. Damn, that was scary. I thought he was going to turn around and beat me to a pulp or burn me again. His new beta, James, spoke up, his voice uneasy. Peter, what kind of monster was that kid? I didn't even realize he was supernatural until he used fire. I have no idea what he is. Peter admitted, running a hand through his hair. All I know is that he's a monster that shouldn't be provoked. Ever. So, James, don't ever provoke him, because I can't save you. And to be perfectly honest, I might even help him deal with you if you're stupid enough to try. James swallowed hard. You seem terrified of him. Of course I am. Peter snapped. He almost killed me twice. I'm only alive because he decided not to finish me off and left me half dead. Derek, who had been silent, finally spoke. Are we still going after Kate? Of course, Peter said, a cold, calculating glint returning to his eyes. But we won't go after her. We'll let her find us when we're ready. We'll make sure she attacks us first. That way, Jacob can't blame me if I kill her in self-defense. We just have to make absolutely sure not to kill Chris Argent or his wife in the process. Jacob and his group returned to the mansion. Styles took a shower and borrowed a change of clothes from Jacob. Cogman prepared dinner for everyone, and they ate together before the Argents finally said their goodbyes and left. Cogman also departed to retrieve the car he had left near the hotel where the Zima family had been staying. Later, in the living room, Styles's expression turned serious. Jacob, I think it's time to tell my dad what's going on. He's going crazy these days and has started drinking again. I'm really worried about him. Jacob leaned back. Do you need my help or something? Styles nodded. Yes, that would be great. All right, Jacob agreed. When? Tomorrow night, Styles said. Fine by me, Jacob replied. With that settled, Styles and Scott said goodnight to Jacob and the girls and left the mansion. If you like this story and want to support me, please go to patreon.com/ayubams926. To be continued.